to welcome everyone back to our board meeting. We will pick up with agenda item 4, a resolution to advance criminal justice reform, an item brought forward by districts 1 and 3. And happy to turn it over to the supervisors if they have any introductory comments they would like to make. If not, we'll go to public speakers.
It's really an honor to bring this forward with my colleague, Vice Chair Vargas. I think most of what I had to say, I was able to say in my comments on item 3, but I just want to reiterate the importance of the work that we're doing in terms of a values reorientation about what's important to us at San Diego County, which is about investing in people and investing in opportunities first and foremost. And with that, I'd like to turn the floor to my co-author.
Thank you, Supervisor Lawson-Remer. I am really pleased to be able to docket this letter with you, and I think a lot has been already said about this, but I think what's really critical is to enforce the power of so many justice organizations and community-based organizations that have been doing this work tirelessly for a very long time. And I think as policymakers, it's our responsibility to uplift their work to advance criminal justice reform and reduce recidivism for a better future for all. I'm really proud that we are introducing this board letter. As you know, I introduced a board letter in March specifically on boys and men of color, and we received unanimous support around it because I do believe that there is a direct correlation between investing in our communities on the front end and then the work that needs to be done as we're reforming the system and itself. There's root causes of behavioral health conditions and poverty that we know are tied to our zip codes. And as we talked about before, data is extremely helpful in understanding the nuances of each issue, but I think it's really important for us to be able to introduce this resolution today and to continue the great work as a county to elevate and advance this opportunity to address criminal justice reform and protect public safety from an equitable perspective for our community. So thank you, and I second the motion. Did you?
I forgot. So
right.
You go ahead and make it, and I'll second.
Okay.
All right, we have a motion by Vice Chair Vargas, seconded by Supervisor Lawson-Remer. Let me ask the clerk to call forward any public speakers on this item.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. We have 13 requests to speak on this item, 5 in person, 8 by phone. Also note for the record that we received 30 e-comments, 29 in favor, 1 in opposition. I'd like to, we'll begin with the in-person speakers. Begin with those in favor and then those in opposition of this item. As your name is called, please come forward and stand against the east wall under the murals until it is your turn to speak. I'd like to invite forward Brahman Curie, Child of God, Alan Curry, Audra Morgan, and Jason Robo. You'll have 2 minutes to address the board. I'll ask you to please state your name for the audio record.
Hi, my name is Brahman Curie, and I came to support Supervisor Tara Lawson's Agenda 3 and 4. And I am the founder of the Brahman Project, Freedom on the Inside Prison Project, and FIFA Reentry Program. And I wanted to share with you today how important it is that I have found. I'm also 15 years clean and sober, and I historically was on the wrong side of the law many, many years ago. And I know the importance of, community outreach programs, drug and alcohol treatment, and a lot of the men that I serve in Donovan Prison with my programs, a lot of them are in there for drug and alcohol related crimes. And it's so sad for me to understand about drug and alcohol addiction and see them in there for crazy amounts of time when what they really need is support and people to help them address these issues early on. Like one member of our reentry community, 43 years ago, his wife and his daughter were murdered in the Jonestown massacre, and he had no capacity on how to deal with that grief and that loss, and committed a crime, a non-violent crime, no guns, no violence, and got 42 years. He's an African-American man. He's recently just been released after serving 42 years in prison, and he's a pillar in our community. He's an absolute pillar. He's an ambassador for one of our programs, but it's the programs that help them when they come out. And he should never have gone in the first place if there were programs that supported his emotional well-being and gave him the tools to deal with things like that. And so I just wanted to share that and say how important it is that I don't believe that prison is, and I spend most of my days, like 2 days a week in prison, providing trauma-informed healing, and it's my experience that these people need healing and community resources. We need to be putting resources into our community to help this along. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Hello, Alan. The prisoners here earlier, the foreman, that was phenomenal, because he actually gave him self-esteem by having actually doing some work where they build up self-esteem, actually feel like they're productive society. Let's take that also with this equity. You're talking about equity, certain. Are we talking about everybody? Are we going to focus on because of certain races? Please don't do that. Let's focus on who's the best prisoner, who's the model prisoners that actually wants to make a difference. Take it a step further. While they're in prison, they can start working there. Start working the low crime ones, the low charge ones. Have them start working there, build up their self-esteem before we move them out into the homes and so forth. Because I think that will help more than anything. Let me see if I got everything down. Yeah, that's pretty much it. But that's basically what I'm saying. Thank you so much.
Next speaker, please.
Kryptonite. That's what I wrote. You keep saying my name. I didn't write that. I mean, I think we should look at when they're in prison, it's just like a school for them to learn how to be a criminal. I mean, they're like teaching each other what to do when they get out. And also, all of the guards are corrupt, and they bring in guns. I mean, drugs and money, you know, cell phones and things like that. So, I mean, I think the system needs to be more looked into, even as far as like when you're holding these people, are they really criminals, or are you making them criminals? Because the system is flawed, and there isn't really a system that's protecting the people. I mean, they're letting the people down. I know this from personal experience, that, you know, judges aren't listening to things, looking into evidence. They're just charging people and giving them a sentence that they don't even deserve. And then when they're in there and they don't deserve to be there, I mean, you're almost teaching them how to be a criminal, because why, when they get out, are they going to want to be good in society when the system has let them down? Just like it's letting everybody down. The fact that you're forcing them to vaccinate, or they can't see their family, or they'll be, you know, doing all these things. It's like, I mean, I think the system needs to be looked into even more if you want to keep criminals off the streets, or from like you know, doing things again that later will put them in prison. I mean, it's just kind of sad, because the whole system is flawed. I mean, look at here, people can't even redress their grievances. You want to silence the people. And it's just sad. I mean, you make us all want to be criminals, really, with the things that you're doing, especially when you can be assaulted and it doesn't matter.
Thank you. Chair Fletcher, that concludes public comment on this item.
Wonderful, thank you. Good item. Motion by Vice Chair Vargas, seconded by Supervisor Lawson-Remer. Please vote.
Chair Fletcher, that motion passes unanimously with all supervisors being present and voting aye.
We're going to go to agenda item number 5. It's an administrative item, second consideration and adoption of an ordinance that we have heard before. I'll make a motion to approve. Is there a second? Second. All right, we have a motion by myself, seconded by Vice Chair Vargas. I'll ask the clerk to call forward the speakers on this item.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. We have 3 requests to speak on this item, 2 in person, 1 by phone. We'll begin with the in-person speakers. I'd like to invite forward Alan Curry and Audra Morgan. You'll have 2 minutes to address the board. For the individual that requested to speak by phone, please dial into the conference line now using the instructions provided to you.
Hello, Alan again. Mr. Desmond, the water tanks you mentioned earlier, I worked in LSE in the Navy working the heels. They can home right exact. I forgot to want to ask one thing, or just a comment to look into. I want to make sure these water tanks stay empty until needed so they don't become a mosquito harvest. And with that bearing in mind, how quickly can the water fill in tanks, say 10, 15 minutes, in case there is a real fire? Okay, going on to the egress. Transnet. 1987, when it first came out, we funded sales tax since 1987 to expand the roads. And yet now we're pushing expansion on private property, but we forgot about the roads, all the back roads. That's where we need the egress at. The problem is, and yet they're taking the funding away for more empty buses, more trolleys. So yes, look into private property again, respect to private property rights, but let's take it back, what I mentioned last time. Instead of trying to fight the fire, let's prevent the fire. And please, please look into this, and thank you again with the sexual predator, you notified other supervisors. Let's please do the same. AB 1054, again, I repeat, AB 1054, $10.5 billion of our taxes, actually through rate increase for the next 5 years, is going to the power companies for lawsuit insurance, not a dime to prevent fires. So please push that through again. Thank you, Jim, through your cohorts, other supervisors. We need to push back and get rid of that AB 1054. And if we're going to use that to bury the power lines, because $10.5 billion in case they get sued again, how does that help prevent fires? The biggest carbon footprint is wildfires. Use that in a context to say this is why this is so important to say, start getting these power companies, because remember, Paradise and the Dixie were both caused by power lines. Let's get the power companies to get involved to prevent fires, please. Thank you.
Next speaker, please.
I don't mean to mean what he says, but the Paradise Fire was actually started with lasers. I mean, there were trees that were burnt from the inside out. There were cars flipped over. A bunch of people died because they wanted to put a train, a fast-moving train that goes through there, and the people refused to sell their homes, so they murdered them all. I mean, let's be honest here. You know, and you want to come in and spend nearly $800,000 to have people, you know, put more defensible space, but you keep changing what it needs to be, and then, you know, requiring the people to do it. It's like you just want to put all these requirements to the people, and then what, are you going to, you know, fine them if they don't do it or if they can't? I mean, but we should be honest about how these fires are starting. They're being started. I mean, it's like, you know, what you're doing with these vaccines. You want to hide the truth, and you don't want to tell people what's really going on. And then you just want to spend all this money because you're being, you know, told to do it. I mean, it's like, this is our money that you guys always want to spend and do whatever you want with. And then you, like, the people will come in and tell you what they want. You don't care. Nathan Fletcher, you're probably doing Twitter and whatever, because you think it's a joke. And you think because other people aren't here telling you whatever that they agree with you. But the people that are here tell you they don't agree with stuff, yet you guys always vote it through. And leave us up to, you know, deal with the consequences of whatever you lay down. So, I mean, is it going to be 200 feet next? Who knows?
Thank you. Chair Fletcher, that concludes public comment on this item.
Thank you for that. Yeah, Supervisor Desmond?
I think on the last item, too, did we do the callers?
If they're there.
They weren't in there.
Oh, they weren't? Oh,
If
because I
there's
thought you
any
had, there was
queue.
8 of them, is what you said, but, okay. All right, thanks.
All right, motion by myself, seconded by Vice Chair Vargas. Not seeing any additional requests, please vote.
Chair Fletcher, that motion passes unanimously with all supervisors being present and voting aye.
We're going to go to agenda item number 6, sunset review of county administrative code. I will make a motion to approve. Is there a second? Second by Supervisor Desmond. Ask the clerk to please call forward the public speakers on item 6.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. We have 3 requests to speak on this item, 1 in person, 2 by phone. For the individuals that requested to speak by phone, please dial into the conference line now using the instructions provided to you. Begin with the in-person speaker. I'd like to invite forward Audra Morgan.
Proposed changes to the review board policies and code provisions. You guys don't even follow your own policies. And you want to do it to better serve the needs of the community. Is that why you guys break your rules all the time? Like, it's okay for you guys to break rules, but when it comes to the people, we just have to obey and do whatever you say. Get vaccinated. It's the only way. Put aborted fetal cells in you and poison.
Do you have a comment about Sunset Review
I
Commission?
do. It's
All right.
about your
Get
policies.
to that.
What?
That would be good. Speak to the
Good.
agenda item.
Yeah, it's your policies. Policies like, taking agenda items off when people request to speak. You don't even have to put your name down. You don't have to put any information down to come in here. You don't even have to wear a mask if they told you they had to. It's actually the Brown Act. I don't know if you guys have ever read that. But, yeah. I mean, it's just interesting that you want us to do all these things in your own regulation. I mean, Nora, you're putting through an agenda item that you get paid for, which is Planned Parenthood, like you like to deny, but we got your 700 forms. And you like to pretend, you're laughing, it's funny, because you like babies being ripped apart limb by limb while they're alive, and then to inject them into people, or put it in the food, whatever it is. But you love that because you get money for it. You guys love money. It's great. It's awesome. Shows your true colors. Shows that you're all like reptiles just waiting to come out. Pure evil. There's a special place for you.
Chair Fletcher, that concludes public comment on this item.
Got a motion by myself, seconded by Supervisor Desmond. Let me go to Supervisor Lawson-Remer. Wants to speak on this item?
This is item 6, yes?
Yes.
Great. Yeah, I just wanted to thank staff for bringing this item forward to reflect our new direction on public safety, and take a moment to thank the community members that have engaged in 2 major reforms we've made this year. Our successful efforts to remove predatory fees for incarcerated people trying to call friends and family, and our ongoing work to provide legal representation for immigrants so everyone in this country can have a fair day in court in accordance with the 4th and 5th Amendment rights under the U.S. Constitution. So thank you, county staff, for your work in moving these items forward, and I'm happy to support.
Wonderful. Thank you. Motion by myself, seconded by Supervisor Desmond. Please vote.
Chair Fletcher, that motion passes unanimously with all supervisors being present and voting aye.
We're going to move to agenda item 7, an item from Public Safety and the Sheriff, a report of inmate welfare expenditure funds for fiscal year 2020 to 2021. We have a presentation on this item. Once they get settled, we will turn it over to our public safety team for their presentation.
Good afternoon, Chair Fletcher and members of the board. Today's item is a request for the Board of Supervisors to receive a report of expenditures from the Sheriff's Department Inmate Welfare Fund as required under California Penal Code Section 4025. The Inmate Welfare Fund was established for the purpose of providing for the welfare of incarcerated individuals. Funds are expended primarily for educational, vocational, and behavioral health resources and training to assist individuals in successfully transitioning back to our local community following time in jail. These types of programs are essential to decreasing the return to custody rate and contributing to the successful reunification of families. The benefit of the Inmate Welfare Fund is shared among all incarcerated individuals, and they are enrolled in as many programs where they meet the eligibility requirements. This morning, Reentry Services Manager Patricia Sabalos of the San Diego County Sheriff's Department will provide details of the Inmate Welfare Fund expenditures for fiscal year 2021. Patricia?
Thank you, Holly. Good afternoon. The Inmate Welfare Fund is governed by Penal Code Section 4025, which states that monies deposited in the Inmate Welfare Fund shall be expended primarily for the benefit, education, and welfare of the inmates confined within the jail. The San Diego Sheriff's Department has appointed an Inmate Welfare Fund committee to administer the fund. The committee is comprised of Detention Services Bureau command staff and 1 civilian volunteer appointed by the sheriff. The fund has established bylaws and operating procedures which outline the roles and responsibilities of Inmate Welfare Committee members, as well as outlines internal procedures to ensure accountability for the operation and effectiveness of the Inmate Welfare Fund. The fund is primarily financed through the proceeds from commissary store sales. Fiscal year 2021 also includes revenue received from the inmate communication contract. Thanks to the support of the Board of Supervisors, starting July 1st, 2021, there is no charge to incarcerated individuals or their families for communication, and revenue will no longer be received by the Inmate Welfare Fund. Additional revenue is received from interest earned on the cash balance of the fund itself, as well as inmate welfare program sales such as the Barista Cart and Fresh Start program. The Inmate Welfare Fund expenditures are broken down by category: education, operations and support, salaries, free indigent goods, supplies, entertainment and recreation, equipment and maintenance. Expenditures totaling $3,749,846 are offset by revenue in the Inmate Welfare Fund, thereby resulting in no change in net general fund cost and no additional staff years. The next slide will highlight the top 4 categories, which account for 90% of the total expenditures. The education category accounts for 54.7% of total expenditures. The Inmate Welfare Fund supported classes and programs taught by contract staff, county staff, or program volunteers encompasses a wide variety of areas to include educational, vocational, psychosocial, life skills, and wellness. The education services contracts provide opportunities to collaborate with community partners to influence change in criminal behavior while promoting healthy lifestyles and community safety. The skills acquired through the Sheriff's Department programming encourage the individuals in custody to translate new behaviors both in custody and into the community. The next is salaries with 18.7% of total expenditures. The Inmate Welfare Fund pays for county staff to provide oversight and perform administrative support responsibilities needed to ensure compliance and quality assurance. Free indigent goods is the next category at 12% of total expenditures. Items that fall within this category include public transportation, welfare kits, DMV ID cards, and release clothing. The supplies category holds 5% of total expenditures. Items within this category include program and barber supplies. The following slide will showcase a video of our reentry services programs. These programs are designed to help the participants gain skills which will help them successfully transition back into the community.
Unfortunately, there seem to be some technical difficulties. The video is a wonderful synopsis of all of the programming that is offered through the Inmate Welfare Fund, which includes gardening, a sewing program. Does it look like it's working now?
Let's try again.
Okay. Patricia will describe briefly what was in the video.
Let's hope my speaking is as great as the video was. So many of the programs that our Reentry Services Division offer are skills and vocational programs, education programs. We offer, in conjunction with some of our contracted providing staff, to the vocational programs are then coupled with some of our education programs. So we're not just giving them job skills and education skills, but also getting them ready to seek employment in the community. Our education opportunities include higher education, so we work with our community college partners to help provide education in the jails, as well as our high school equivalency. And it looks like the video might be up and potentially ready, but I'd be happy to share more.
Services Manager for the San Diego County Sheriff's Department. The Reentry Services Division helps build programs for people who are in custody, helps build their skills in education, vocation, wellness, and psychosocial programs that will help give them the skills to transition back into the community. The Reentry Services Division offers many programs. One of those programs is the Bicycle Program. This class offers hands-on experience in bicycle repair. Donated bicycles are refurbished and distributed back to the community through nonprofit organizations. The Civics Program is a collaboration with the San Diego County Department of Parks and Recreation. This program offers participants training in areas of park maintenance, clearing of brush, and fire protection. The Landscaping Horticulture Program is designed to give students an experience in working with the earth, in watching things grow, and really focusing on rehabilitative efforts when it comes to growing one's food, plants, and restoring one's self-confidence. Many of the vegetables and herbs that are grown in the landscaping program are offered to our Culinary Arts program. The Culinary Arts program is a 6-month program. Students learn how to operate a kitchen, restaurant management, food handling, as well as customer service. Many of the students who have participated in the Culinary Arts program have obtained employment in various areas of San Diego County. The Industrial Sewing program helps educate students on pattern making, cutting, sewing, and other practical skills within the sewing field. Additionally, the program supports clothing needs of the jail, as well as making surgical masks for the individuals in custody. The Barista program offers participants an opportunity to work in a coffee shop environment. It gives them the opportunity to build new recipes, to work on customer service, and to gain certification in a booming industry. The Veterans Moving Forward program is a nationally recognized program. It's an incentive-based housing module that prepares veterans for success by providing case management, peer support services, and cognitive behavioral therapy. The services offered here are in collaboration with several community partners, as well as our Veterans Administration services. The Job Centers offer an opportunity for students to work on their resume, build interview skills, and connect to employers prior to release. As we know, employment is one of the #1 needs identified by individuals for successful reentry. Our goal is to not just get people jobs, but to find them employment that will provide a sustainable living wage to support their reentry as well as reuniting with their family. In collaboration with the National Association of Women Judges, the Success Inside and Out program is a one-stop shop for reentry needs. Programs and services include parenting, communication, legal assistance, as well as securing a California ID and bus passes for successful reentry. The Reentry Services Division Wellness Track offers yoga to the men and women in custody. Yoga offers students an opportunity to practice wellness, meditation, and overall healthy coping skills. Students who participate in trauma art utilize a creative skill set to express themselves. Trauma art offers students a space to be creative, to heal, and to transform. The Theater Arts program offers an eclectic array of services to help boost self-esteem while allowing a creative outlet to shine through. Many of the participants are able to practice instruments, experience theater, as well as write their own plays. The Construction Trades program is an immersion into the construction field. Students will learn welding, HVAC, painting, carpentry, and cement work. Many of the students who have participated in construction trades has led to employment in the community. Students who are part of the bakery program walk into a kitchen with the smell of cinnamon and sugar in the air. For many of the baking students, this is their first time in the kitchen. The students learn how to make cookies, cakes, as well as homemade bread. With the knowledge they have obtained from the production side as well as the creative side, many students have reported obtaining employment in bakeries, pizza shops, as well as local cafes. The Healthcare Service Assistant Training Program provides students hands-on experience. Participants spend time each day performing on-the-job training in medical areas of the facilities. Students who complete the HSAT program receive a certification that is transferable to the healthcare service industry. We as a department are here to provide that level of support, care, and understanding as we build bridges to reentry.
Thank you for your patience with that. I'll now turn the presentation back over to Holly.
The recommendation for item number 7 is to receive the San Diego County Sheriff's Department fiscal year 2021 report of the Inmate Welfare Fund expenditures. And this concludes our presentation. We have several representatives from the Sheriff's Department here to answer any questions the board may have.
Wonderful. Thank you for the presentation. Let's go to our public speakers, and then we'll come back to the board. Let me ask the clerk to call them forward at this time.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. We have 3 requests to speak on this item, 2 in person, 1 by phone. I'd like to invite forward Child of God and Audra Morgan. You'll have 2 minutes to address the board. For the individuals that requested to speak by phone, please dial into the conference line now using the instructions provided to you. Again, you'll have 2 minutes to address the board.
All right, the benefit of the IWF is shared with all incarcerated individuals, and they are enrolled in as many programs where they meet eligibility requirements. Is a vaccine a requirement? So like if they want to get back into the world, are you going to force them to vaccinate? Because that's the only way to get things to where you need them to be. Because, I mean, that's not really fair. And, I mean, do they even get to eat that food? Because, I mean, the food in jail is not good. And I guarantee you they probably don't get to even eat what they cook or share it with other inmates. I mean, they're fed a bunch of bullshit. It's pretty messed up. They don't even get good food. And then you want to offer them this way to get back into normal life, but when they come back out into normal life, your normal life is a vaccinated individual. Putting a bioweapon in every person is your goal. And so you won't even let them do things in prison if they don't get it. So are you going to let them out of jail or prison if they don't get a vaccine? Is that one of the requirements? Just like, Nathan, you require everybody getting a job here to be vaccinated? Because you say it's safe and effective. What happened to Wilma Wooten saying all the adverse reactions? Death wasn't even one of those. I mean, you're lying to the people. And then you're making inmates who may or may not need to be there get vaccinated just to be free. It's pretty sad.
Next speaker, please.
Child of God. I am definitely an advocate for having these programs that were in that beautifully illustrated video when it is for folks who have committed normal crimes, but not for those who commit treason. Let's be really clear on that. Those who have taken an oath of office to be public servants and then tread on the rights of free men and women our God-given inalienable rights, that is treason. When you commit treason, you are not a son or daughter of God. You are a son of a tree, treason, and you have deeply embedded your roots into the earthly, material world. I will pray for you when you are in solitary confinement for your acts of treason upon the people of San Diego.
Chair Fletcher, that concludes public comment on this item.
All right, let me go to Supervisor Lawson-Remer.
Thank you. I just had a quick question. My understanding is that some portion of these funds have not been spent over the last fiscal year because of COVID. So is the plan to roll them over and have them available to be used for our inmate welfare programs in the next fiscal year?
Yes, that's correct.
Great. Thank you.
All right, make a motion to approve recommendations in this item. Is there a second by Supervisor Anderson? Not seeing any additional requests to speak. Please vote.
Chair Fletcher, that motion passes unanimously with all supervisors being present and voting aye.
We're going to go agenda item number 8, Sheriff's Department, request for approval. Make a motion to approve. Is there a second? Second. Motion by myself, second by Supervisor Anderson. Let me ask the clerk to call forward the speakers on this item.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. We have 3 requests to speak on this item, 1 in person, 2 by phone. We'll begin with the in-person speaker. I'd like to invite forward Audra Morgan.
You're using one company to replace parts because the people may not be able to use them if they're not used to OME parts. I mean, it's for like doors and flaps for them to, put food through. Why is there only one company? Do you guys have ties with that company? Are you getting paid by the company? There's just one that makes these parts, and they have to be OME, and then the people have to pay for that? How much you getting paid, Nathan? Nora? Tara? How much you getting paid? Nothing, Jim? Like that, thank you. See, you answered, it's truthful. I believe you. I do, which is weird. But it's just sad because it's like, why are you only going to one company and then you're gonna, it's like, what, $500,000 that we're spending for OME parts that have to be OME so they know how to use them? I mean, isn't that a little weird? Like you're not gonna know how to open a door if it's not original manufacturer. Uh-oh, it might not work. Does that pen taste good, Nathan? There might be COVID on it. You haven't been wearing your mask. I'm a little concerned. Should I be worried about the spike proteins just emitting from you? They're just like blowing over here. I should probably take some ivermectin. It's not horse paste, actually. People are actually using real medication. You just think it's horse paste because you think we're idiots. We know the truth.
And Chair Fletcher, not seeing any callers in the queue. That concludes public comment on this item.
All right, we've got a motion by myself, seconded by Supervisor Anderson. Please vote.
Chair Fletcher, that motion passes unanimously with all supervisors being present and voting aye.
Agenda item 9 was approved on the consent calendar, but we have had a request to speak on this item, and out of a desire to make sure the public has the opportunity to speak, I think what we'll do is open the record unless there's a motion to reconsider the vote and have the vote. We can open the item, hear from our speakers on this item, then close the item and move on. So I'll ask the clerk to call forward any public speakers on agenda item 9.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. I'd like to invite forward Audra Morgan.
Showers. Showers that nobody can keep dry. It's kind of interesting. Another company that you can only use one company for. How many times are you going to redo the showers because you got, like, they can't keep clean? It's like, I don't know, 4,000 or 5,000, maybe 6. I think it might have been 6,700 or something per shower. I wish I could spend that on my shower. That would be pretty nice. It would look pretty good. I mean, is it, yeah, right? Money laundering. I mean, that much for a shower in prison, for real? Are they made of gold? How much did your shower cost, Nathan? Was it that much? Or are you going to have your shower done with this money? The one in your prison cell in Gitmo? I'm talking about items on the agenda, don't worry. It should be nice and cozy if you have showers that are nearly $7,000. Are those ones going to stay dry? Is that going to last a couple years and then we're going to be here again talking about another way to, you know, keep showers dry when they're just using them all the time? I mean, how about some proper ventilation? I know they don't have that. I mean, they probably don't even have good water going in there. It's probably full of graphene. Yeah. There's a smile. Good.
Chair Fletcher, that concludes public comment for item 9.
All right. Not seeing a motion to revote, we will close item 9. We'll move to agenda item 11, probation successful implementation of juvenile justice realignment. We have a staff presentation on this item. We're going to turn it over to staff, and then we'll go to public speakers.
Good afternoon again, Chair Fletcher and members of the board. San Diego County's juvenile justice system has been undergoing a significant transformation to adopt national best practices in supporting justice-involved young people. Youth committed or quote-unquote sentenced for the most serious offenses have been housed at the state's Division of Juvenile Justice facilities for specialized programming and public safety. Senate Bill 823 authorizes and requires counties to house these youth in local custody up to the age of 25 and provides funding to support evidence-informed programming that supports youth success. The Juvenile Justice Coordinating Council's Senate Bill 823 subcommittee met on 8 occasions this calendar year to analyze data trends, seek input for programs and services that should be provided to youth who will now remain in county custody rather than transferring to a state facility. This was pursuant to Senate Bill 823. They developed a draft implementation plan per state guidance. The implementation plan must be submitted to the state's Office of Youth and Community Restoration by December 31st of this year for counties to remain eligible for future state funding. The implementation plan calls for supportive services, including career and academic support services, positive youth development programming, behavioral health treatment programming, reentry support, and support for families to participate in the care of the youth. The plan also identifies long-term needs for post-high school academic and career development services. Today's action is a request for the Board of Supervisors to receive the Senate Bill 823 implementation plan, as well as authorize the Department of Purchasing and Contracting to issue a request for proposals to provide supportive services to the youth in custody. This afternoon, Interim Chief Probation Officer Cesar Escuro and Executive Deputy Chief Scott Huizar of the San Diego County Probation Department will describe the service plan for these youth. Cesar?
Thank you, Holly. Over the past decade, shifts in the juvenile crime rate and enhanced alternatives to custody have reduced our detention population. Our local system has enhanced its prevention, early intervention, and diversion by including more direct mental health and trauma services, deepening our collaboration with school districts and supporting the needs of the entire family. The results have been impressive. Over the last 7 years, probation has experienced nearly 70% reduction in our juvenile detention population and 75% reduction of those on community supervision. Senate Bill 823 means We will now be responsible for youth whose time in custody is no longer just a few months, but rather a few years. This means our staff training, treatment, and daily programming will change for a population that is older and will spend more time in custody than we've previously experienced. What won't change is our commitment to treating these young people as adolescents and not adults. We have a final, unique opportunity to support justice-involved young people by providing clinical support, education, career development services that can help them permanently exit the justice system and thrive. Fortunately, probation and its juvenile justice partners have been collaborating for nearly 4 years on the implementation of the nationally acclaimed Youth in Custody Practice Model from Georgetown University to support youth and staff working in our custodial facilities. The work from the practice model will be applied to our implementation of this program. These state legislative changes support keeping youth near their home communities, removing treatment barriers by including local providers and staff in care, providing reentry planning, and including family and supportive adults throughout a young person's time in custody. This allows, through June 2023, counties may continue sending youth who have committed serious and violent offenses to the state-run facility. This allows counties time to develop implementation plans and put critical services into place that will promote rehabilitation and maintain safety for a population that can remain in custody until their 25th birthday. A subcommittee of the Juvenile Justice Coordinating Council has completed a plan to be submitted to the state's Office of Youth and Community Restoration by December 31st, 2021. I will now turn it over to Executive Deputy Chief Scott Weezar to talk more about the unique role of this new level of care in our local system and implementation planning efforts.
Thank you, Cesar. Presently, the Juvenile Court has 3 commitment options for youth who require rehabilitation in a secure setting. Juvenile court judges select the option which best suits the facts of the case, including the severity of the offense, the age, and the assessed risks and needs of the youth. The first option is a short-term local program known as the Urban Camp. Youth may be housed anywhere from 3 to 6 months, depending on court requirements or programming needs. Next, the probation department operates the Healing Opportunities for Personal Empowerment, or the HOPE program. The HOPE program is a relatively new program that supports a previous state juvenile realignment effort where we partner with behavioral health services to dedicate licensed mental health clinicians to the living units to establish a therapeutic-oriented program. The HOPE program serves a more sophisticated and generally older population than Urban Camp and has been the last local option short of a commitment to the state-operated Division of Juvenile Justice. Our third option for youth that have committed the most serious and violent offenses. For this small population, we've relied on commitments to the state-operated Division of Juvenile Justice. San Diego County sends approximately 15 to 25 youth annually to the state-operated facility. Currently, the state-operated facility houses approximately 55 local youth throughout the year, with an average length of stay of 2.5 years. Under Senate Bill 823, the Division of Juvenile Justice will be replaced by a local program called the Youth Development Academy. In January of 2021, the San Diego Association of Governments, or SANDAG, completed a detailed analysis using historical data on San Diego Division of Juvenile Justice population to better understand how youth were committed to the state-run facility and their treatment needs. As we suspected, the SANDAG report notes that our youth have significant trauma experiences, substance use disorder needs, and educational challenges. Until recently, nearly all youth placed at the state-operated facility had been on probation for an average of 3 years before their commitment and graduated through various custodial and community programs. In April of this year, local juvenile justice partners began the implementation planning as required by the legislation. This process was chaired by the interim chief probation officer. The subcommittee held 8 public meetings to receive input on topics that included preparing for a young person's reentry back into the community, identifying the treatment and behavioral programs to address underlying clinical needs and antisocial behaviors, designing a daily program and evaluating facility operations, and reviewing data collection, both from an overall view, also focusing on an equity lens on who is arriving in the program and whether the youth are successful. The subcommittee designed the Youth Development Academy program over the course of those 8 public meetings. Much like a school, the Academy is focused on supporting the young person's needs and recognizes the value of education and career development. The Academy will be located at the East Mesa Juvenile Detention Facility. Probation and the Department of General Services are working on a renovation plan to make the assigned living units more home-like. Robust services will be provided by a combination of probation and behavioral health staff and an outside contractor. Probation and behavioral health services continue to meet on a regular basis to finalize a service delivery model that is trauma-informed and treatment-oriented. We will focus on reentry services that will include individuals with lived experiences. Each youth will have an individual rehabilitation plan or a roadmap to success within 30 days of the program commitment. The roadmap will be developed with input from all relevant collaborative partners, as well as involvement from the youth and the family to identify the youth's strengths, barriers to overcome, and education and career goals. An independent evaluator will measure outcomes in collaboration with the probation department. In addition to traditional metrics of success, such as rate of recidivism and changes in assessed risk and needs, probation will use standardized methods to measure the program's adherence to therapeutic models. Staff and youth climate surveys will measure the quality of the critical relationships between the staff and youth. All outcome measures, including length of stay in the program, will be disaggregated by race and ethnicity to ensure that decision points within our program are administered fairly. I will now turn it back over to Holly to complete our presentation.
Thank you, Cesar and Scott. So the recommendations before the board today are to receive the County of San Diego's Senate Bill 823 implementation plan and to authorize the Director, Department of Purchasing and Contracting to issue a request for proposals and eventually award a contract for supportive services to youth in custody and to support their reentry into the community. And that concludes our presentation.
Thank you. I want to thank you all for the presentation. I want to thank the entire probation department for what's really been transformative change over the last few years. You've been asked to do a lot. To do it significantly different. And I think over time it's going to bear out to be right. I mean, what we're seeing, just the reductions in the number of youths in custody, as you highlighted, 68%, almost 70% reduction. The reduction in the number of youth on probation supervision, but also the rethinking and reimagining for those who are in custody, who are in supervision, a really restorative approach for how we try and give them the help and assistance they need. Obviously, Senate Bill 823 is a big change with DJJ no longer fulfilling what they have historically done for some of those high-risk offenders, and we have to be prepared as a county to move forward and to accept those when we hit that point in July of 2023, and I think this is an appropriate step for us to take moving forward. I also want to thank, I know Senate Bill 823 requires us to create a subcommittee of sorts to work through these issues, and I want to thank in particular the members who are there. Our Juvenile Justice Coordinating Council is helping facilitate this effort. I sit as the board representative on the Juvenile Justice Coordinating Council, and so I want to thank our interim chief probation officer. I want to thank the presiding judge, Judge Espana, the district attorney's office, Representative Lisa Weinreb, Public Defender's Office, Mary Beth Wykus, our Health and Human Service Agency, Representative Fran Cooper, San Diego County Office of Education, Tracy Thompson, and in particular our 3 community youth advocates, Layla Aziz, DeAndre Brooks, and Joy Singleton, who are all going to be working together through that process to help us as we go out and prepare for this effort. And so thank you to everyone there. Let's hear from our speakers, and then I know we have a few board members who have comments or questions on this item. So let me ask the clerk to call forward the speakers first.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. We have 2 requests to speak on this item. We'll begin with the in-person speaker, and then we'll go to the speaker that requested to speak by phone. I'd like to invite forward Audra Morgan. You'll have 2 minutes to address the board.
So it's a little concerning with all that's going on with the youth today and how they're being totally brainwashed and what we have to look forward to in the future because they love wearing masks and getting tested. But in here you were talking about sex offender treatment. Does that include kids who may be engaging in sex with maybe someone who's a little bit younger and it's not really, they're not even a sex offender? Who knows? And you're going to do mental health and cognitive behavioral health. So that's like depression and anxiety disorders are included in that. I mean, kids all over the place are suffering from that. So what do they need to stay? If they were 15 when they got in there, they could stay till they're 25. That's a 10-year sentence. What kind of offenses are they committing that would require a 10-year sentence? I mean, but the average age you say is 17 and a half, and their stay is about 2.5 to 3 years. But like 25, I mean, are you just keeping kids locked up too, kind of like you do people? I mean, everything that you guys are doing these days is like setting the kids up to be future criminals. It's kind of sad. Because it should stop there before they even have to go in. I mean, you know, even looking at real sex offenders. I mean, if they're kids, if they were maybe molesting a child, sure. But like, if they're engaging in sex with somebody who's like a year younger than them, and then they're a sex offender, it's pretty sad.
We'll now move to the individual that requested to speak by phone. Last 4 digits are 1148. 1148. Please press *6 to unmute your line, and please state your name for the audio record.
Hi, Noemi. I'm always in opposition, of course. But anyway, I did hear the guy that was speaking before this, and he did make some valid points about the youth being having those initiatives and things like that, but it just kind of seems like the problems do stem from like other more interpersonal connections with maybe a male figure or something, because when I did used to work with the youth, that was the number one problem with them, that they kind of lacked that that strong male figure in their life. So they were kind of, you know, go out and do things that they weren't supposed to do, but I would kind of try to include that in there. Sorry, I was running. So I would say that it would have a lot of benefit to them if they were to probably, you know, get to have like a mentor or something like that. I think that would help them in how they were, you know, to like avoid crimes and things like that. Counseling would be another option. I don't know exactly what it is, but it would help to get a little more information on that, because it kind of did sound vague. So anyway, thank you.
Chair Fletcher, that concludes public comment on this item.
Perfect. Thank you. Let me go to my colleagues, starting with Vice Chair Vargas.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. Thank you for the presentation. I think this is important, transformative work that's really happening. This is a very personal issue for me, particularly for our communities in South County. As we know, the system is pretty much stacked against boys of color due to systemic oppression that is real, and that has been rampant in our policing, our court system, jails, and in our practices, police practices. In zip codes in my district, there's police practices that profile our young men of color before a crime is even committed, right? And we often describe boys of color at risk or being vulnerable, but our young boys were not born at risk. And so instead of our societal failures have placed our young boys of color at risk of harm, crime, and abuse. So I believe strongly that to build an equitable future in San Diego, we must take deliberate and intentional action to invest in these young boys of color and their families, their support systems through this collaborative approach. And this juvenile justice realignment plan is a step towards that. So I'm really appreciative of that. It holds a lot of promise to improve outcomes for our Black and brown youth who have faced significant disparities in our criminal justice system. But I do believe that the success will be dependent on coordination between all of us, the judges, prosecutors, defense attorneys, probation, young people, their families, and their communities who have been directly impacted by our system's failures. We all have a part in reimagining what the youth system looks like and should continue to be involved to ensure the success of the Juvenile Justice Realignment Program. And I understand that there's a committee that's looking at this. I just want to make sure that as the county leaders, we fulfill our duty by ensuring that there's oversight, and I hope that the staff is going to be returning, obviously with annual reports and outcome measurements that are detailed in the implementation plan, with particular attention to any disparities that are found based on race and ethnicity. The other item is having met with a lot of groups that include a lot of coaching and mentorship, including programs that are already partners of our own juvenile probation programs, is that these individual rehabilitation plans don't end when people stop being in our custody, right? We need to make sure that organizations and our partners continue with that process so that recidivism continues and is expanded. And so I am really looking forward to this succeeding, and whatever I can do, I'm happy to make a motion to support this report. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. I have a motion by Vice Chair Vargas. I'm happy to second that one. We go to Supervisor Desmond.
I just want to say briefly, and also thank those who participated in the Juvenile Justice Coordinating Council. A couple of years ago, I toured the Kearny Mesa Juvenile Hall. It was actually built in the 1950s and was really kind of a scary place, not a place of healing. So I like the scope of work that's been identified. It's a solid plan. Thank you very much for the presentation. I look forward to our county to lead the state of juvenile justice reform. Thank you very much.
All right, I've got a motion by Vice Chair Vargas, seconded by myself. Not seeing any additional requests to speak. Thank you for all of the hard work that's gone into this. Please vote.
Chair Fletcher, that motion passes unanimously with all supervisors being present and voting aye.
We're going to go to agenda item number 12, County Fire Emergency Medical Services. Make a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Vice Chair Vargas. Ask the clerk to call forward the speaker on this, please.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. We have three requests to speak on this item, one in person and two by phone. We'll begin with the in-person speaker. I'd like to invite forward Audra Morgan, and then we'll hear from the individuals that requested to speak by phone. Again, you'll have 2 minutes to address the board.
So it's a little weird that you're like exempting them from having a spare wheel. And I mean, they could put it under the truck. Do you know that's where trucks put spare tires? Yet you're like going to make another ambulance come and save the day if they have a flat tire. And what if they have a call and it's like, oh, we can't go because there's, we exempted them from their spare wheel, and so we got to go pick them up. I mean, why wouldn't you even send a tow truck? I mean, that sounds more logical than another ambulance. It's a little weird to do that. I mean, no? I don't know. I mean, I guess that's just weird of me to say. When like trucks, it goes right under, I mean, put it on top. Put it on the side. I mean, there's many options. It's not like you have to leave them without a spare tire, especially with the road conditions. I mean, they hit a pothole and then it's like, oh, whoops, sorry, we needed this extra equipment in here. So we got to call another ambulance. And maybe we'll have to wait because they're on another call. But it doesn't really matter because the emergency is that they don't have a spare tire. Good times.
We'll now hear from the individual that requested to speak by phone. Last four digits, 1148. 1148, please press *6 to unmute your line. I'll ask you to please state your name for the audio record. 1148.
Oh, wow. Hello again.
Can you please state your name?
Well, Noemi. So, have you guys ever talked to the people that have actually been released from jail and seen what the real issues are? They actually are killing the pedophiles that are inside of the jail. Like, they're out here saying
All right,
that.
caller, I'm sorry, we're on agenda item 12. It relates to fire emergency medical services. So we want to have you direct your comments to agenda item 12, please.
My bad. Okay, so I guess it doesn't matter. I just don't want to get injected, obviously, right? They're not out there in the front lines because of you, because you're the one that causes this issue of forcing American people that have those rights, correct? To like go ahead and do it, and then they're quitting because they don't want to be subject to an experimental drug, and there you go. So, what are you going to say? Let's pass this, seconded by myself. That's all you're going to say. It's on you. You're always going to do whatever you want to do, right? And you're not going to care what American people have to say about anything. You're just doing whatever the hell you want to do. Okay.
Chair Fletcher, that concludes public comment on this item.
Supervisor Desmond.
Okay, I'll bite. Why are we voting on a spare tire in an ambulance or not?
This is Supervisor Desmond, this is a requirement by vehicle code, and so on behalf of ambulance companies in San Diego County, the County Emergency Medical Services requests this. Most of the larger ambulance companies have their own fleet for immediate response, so it's likely it's quicker for them to get another ambulance out than it would be for paramedics on the side of the road to be, sort of changing a tire, and it provides space for extra medical equipment that would otherwise be occupied.
Why can't we just make this part of a contract instead of coming to the Board of Supervisors about a spare tire?
So it requires every other year authorization.
Every other year we're going to get this?
Every other year.
Okay.
It's a recurring item.
Okay.
Thank you.
It's a tough job, but somebody's got to do it. All right. Thank you very much. I'll move approval of the item.
Thank you. We've got a motion and a second. Please vote.
Chair Fletcher, that motion passes unanimously with all supervisors being present and voting aye.
We're going to go to agenda item 13, notice public hearing around our housing items. We're going to have a staff presentation on this item. Let me turn it over first to staff for presentation, and then we'll go to our public speakers.
Good afternoon, Chair Fletcher, members of the board. The purpose of today's presentation is to receive community input on the fiscal year 2020-23 annual strategy for the annual plan strategy for the County of San Diego's federal entitlement programs, encouraging residents to provide input regarding the needs of their community and ensuring that the funds are equitably utilized among the entitlement programs. The annual plan strategy serves as a public record that lays out the board's priorities, furthering the board's movement towards government transparency and aligning with the board's framework for our future by targeting and investing in historically disadvantaged communities. Additionally, we're requesting the authorization to issue a competitive solicitation to procure housing and services related to our Housing Opportunities for People Living with AIDS program, HUPA. Here to present is Director of our Housing Community Development Services, David Estrella. David.
Good afternoon. The Health and Human Services Agency, Housing and Community Development Services, administers 4 U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development federal entitlement programs. The Community Development Block Grant, or CDBG program, serves communities by providing a flexible funding source to address local housing and community development needs. The Home Investment Partnerships, or HOME program, provides decent and affordable housing to lower-income households. This program also is used to support housing-related activities for low to moderate-income persons. The Emergency Solutions Grant, or ESG program, provides direct services to persons experiencing homelessness or at risk of homelessness. Eligible activities are homeless prevention, rapid rehousing, emergency shelter, and street outreach programs funded through contracted providers. And finally, the Housing Opportunities for Persons with HIV/AIDS, or HOPWA program, provides housing and housing-related services to persons living with HIV/AIDS and their families. These funds assist more than 1,000 families through supportive services and housing subsidies. As a recipient of HUD entitlement program funding, the County of San Diego is required to develop a 5-year consolidated plan that strategically addresses the community's needs and priorities. The Board of Supervisors approved the current consolidated plan in April of 2020, which covers fiscal years 2020 through 2024. We're about to begin the 3rd year of the current consolidated plan cycle, which serves as a framework for a community-wide dialogue to identify housing and community development priorities. For each of the 5 years included in the consolidated plan, HCDS follows an annual cycle which requires 3 key documents: the annual plan strategy, the annual plan, and the Consolidated Annual Performance and Evaluation Report, also known as the CAPER. Next slide, please. At the onset of each annual cycle, HUD develops the annual plan strategy, which is presented here today. The annual plan strategy lays out how the county plans to prioritize and meet annual goals set forth in the consolidated plan. In addition, the annual plan strategy hearing serves as the first of 2 federally mandated public hearings and provides an opportunity for the Board of Supervisors to receive public comment on the fiscal year 2022 through 23 annual plan strategy. The second key document is the annual plan, which provides a list of recommended projects for funding. This will be presented to your board in spring 2022 and will serve as the second required public hearing. The third and final required document in the annual cycle is the Consolidated Annual Performance Evaluation Report, also known as the CAPER. The report details all the outcomes and accomplishments for the previous fiscal year. The annual plan strategy presented today guides staff to prioritize projects based on the needs of the communities and goals outlined in the consolidated plan. These goals are to increase affordable housing, prevent and end homelessness, enhance community infrastructure, and to provide housing and supportive services for those living with HIV/AIDS. The projects are prioritized based on 4 key criteria. The county will consider feedback gathered through the public input process, including written and spoken public comments on this item. Projects are prioritized and selected based on priorities identified by your board offices through our board priority survey, which identified homelessness, affordable housing, and community infrastructure as the top priorities. Projects must also adhere to their specific program requirements, and projects must align with the goals set forth in the 2024 Consolidated Plan. In addition to the approval of the annual plan strategy, staff request authorization to issue a competitive solicitation for the procurement for the HOPWA program. On average, the region's HOPWA allocation is over $5 million annually. The funds provide housing and housing-related services, such as emergency housing, information and referral services, residential care, transitional housing, moving services, home-delivered meals, and supportive services to persons living with HIV/AIDS and their families. HOPWA is a critical component of the county's Getting to Zero initiative, adopted by the board in March of 2016. The initiative seeks to end the HIV epidemic by eliminating all new infections in the county through robust testing, treatment, and prevention. Access to housing and supportive services are key social determinants of health, as identified by the Getting to Zero implementation plan, and provide individuals with an opportunity to connect to consistent medical care. The requested actions before you today are to hold this public hearing to receive public input on housing and community development needs and approve the fiscal year 22-23 annual plan strategy. Also, to authorize a competitive solicitation to procure housing and services related to the HOPWA program. This completes our presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Thank you for the presentation. Let me ask the clerk to call forward the public speakers on this item.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. We have 4 requests to speak on this item, 3 in person and 1 by phone. Also note that we received 1 e-comment. It was a neutral comment. We'll begin with the in-person speakers. I'd like to invite forward Alan Curry, Audra Morgan, and Child of God. You'll have 2 minutes to address the board. Please state your name for the audio record. For the individual that requested to speak by phone, please dial into the conference line now using the instructions that were provided to you.
Hello, Alan. Commendable what you're doing this. When I was in the Navy back in the 80s and knew the age, basically what the Navy did was took all the sailors that were tested positive and put them in the wave cage on the upper floors. He was perfectly healthy. There was nothing wrong with him, but he was tested positive. So one of the concerns is if we start ostracizing these people, are we making it worse? Let's look at how we're going to approach this program where they're not ostracized, because that's very important. They live in, because a lot of people with AIDS are actually perfectly healthy, perfectly fine. They can live a normal life. I know, as I've known a few in the Navy back then. Okay, thank you.
Next speaker, please.
Child of God. Just because somebody in a white coat has given you a diagnosis or a prognosis does not make it so. Only by the God-given intuition does it make it so. Stop handing your power over to these frauds that walk around in white coats, giving you death sentences. I had a relative who lived with HIV/AIDS for many years. And that was when I was a child, and I did not comprehend the level of fear that actually is what ended up taking his life. It wasn't HIV/AIDS that took his life. It was the fear that ran within his family. I know for a fact that if he were living today, he would agree with me. God rest his soul, Jim. We have to stop putting labels on people. It was a mind control mechanism that started in, I don't know, that was the 90s, I guess. And it was only to prepare us for these times with these silly sham-demics. And I bet there's another one that's already in the works for another 5 or 10 years down the road. The weapon of choice that they're using instead of a gun against the people are syringes. We have to put a stop to it. We have to stop putting people in boxes with labels. Stop having them believe that they are victims. They are creators of their experience, and we can co-create healthy solutions for them.
So we know HIV is man-made, right? And they use the same PCR test that is totally fraudulent to push this amongst the people so they could give them medication and kill them. It's pretty sad because it's like we're repeating history like we always do. It's great. But also, you know, these vaccines have HIV/AIDS in them. So people are testing positive. And what are they just like, oh, whoops, yeah, it's not like the same thing. Just like, oh, if all of a sudden your cancer goes bananas, that's not why. Or if you have like a heart condition suddenly, oh, that's not why. It's just by chance. And so it's just interesting because, you know, it's 5 to 6 million that you're going to be spending. Are you going to be preparing for more people that are going to be diagnosed with this because it's in the vaccines and especially in the boosters that are also full of bacteria? And you know, the Johnson & Johnson vaccine has monkey kidney cells. You know what that gets you? Ebola. It's called monkeypox. Have you heard of the Marburg virus that they're going to send out? Oh, that's the next variant. You know that you can cure AIDS with ivermectin and cancer. It's done with Zika, a whole lot of things. But yet, it's just horse paste. Or just horses taking paste. Because you don't want people to know that there's something out there that can help them, Nathan. Wouldn't you if your wife needed ivermectin? Maybe she should take that. If she has cancer, it could cure her. Wouldn't you want to do everything you could to save her life?
Chair Fletcher, that concludes public comment on this item.
Thank you. Let's go to Supervisor Desmond.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you very much for the presentation. And I know these are CDBG funds that when I was mayor of San Marcos, we got the CDBG funds. We had to go through the same processes and things like that. And I know you're looking for public input, but I know I'm not in the public, but I would like to ask that we really, look at qualifying projects in the unincorporated areas. And I've said this before, I'll say it again, we are their only local government and their resource. And there are plenty of needs and projects in the unincorporated areas, and if we can make sure that for housing and community development that we realize that we are it for them, and make sure that we do well by them and look for projects in the unincorporated areas would be my public input. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll make a motion to approve the recommendations in this item. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by myself, second by Supervisor Anderson. Please vote.
Chair Fletcher, that motion passes unanimously with all supervisors being present and voting aye.
We're now going to move to agenda item 14, verifying compliance and enhancing communication during the sexually violent predator placement process is an item brought forward by Supervisors Anderson and Desmond. I'm going to turn it over to them if they'd like to make any introductory comments.
I would, as a matter of fact. I want to thank my colleague for working with me. This is a very problematic issue. State law requires that placement be done in different counties, and in my short time on the board, I've had to deal with this already as some of my colleagues. And what I found was that some of the evidence or some of the findings that Liberty Healthcare, the agent of state hospitals, presented was not particularly accurate. We had code enforcement violations at the House that they were suggesting. And so what this board letter essentially does, it recognizes that we have no veto power. However, we can code enforce, and we can also notify the public. So what we're looking to do is to make sure that everybody in the neighborhood knows prior, so if they have a concern, they can voice it. And with that, I'd like to make the motion in favor of this.
Thank you. Supervisor Desmond.
I'll second the motion, and I want to thank Supervisor Anderson for bringing this forward. This is a good follow-up, sort of a next step in tightening up the process from the last board meeting when we had it on the sexually violent predators. There's still work to be done on this. We want to make sure county is part of the process, that we have a say and a thumbs up or thumbs down, particularly in these locations that are brought forth by Liberty Health, anywhere in San Diego County. So I'm happy to second the motion. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a motion by Supervisor Anderson, seconded by Supervisor Desmond on the table. Let me ask the clerk to call forward the public speakers.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. We have 6 requests to speak on this item, 2 in person, 4 by phone. We also received 2 e-comments in favor of this item. We'll begin with the in-person speakers. I'd like to invite forward Alan Curry and Audra Morgan. You'll have 2 minutes to address the board. I ask you to please state your name for the audio record.
Hi there, Alan. Mr. Joe Anderson, you rock. That is phenomenal. Yes, just use the code enforcement whatever ways we can. We've gone on through restaurants and everything else in the code enforcement. Now you can actually make something good for a change. That is phenomenal, sir. Phenomenal. And please keep the fire up, Mr. Jim Desmond and the rest of the board. Keep hitting these other board supervisors throughout the state. We've got to get these laws changed. absolutely get these laws changed. And again, please look at SB 145, where they allow an adult to be with a child. That can never happen. That law needs repealed now. Thank you so much. Phenomenal, sir.
Next speaker, please.
I just kind of wonder why we put them back in the community ever, just so that they can reoffend. I mean, shouldn't there be like a place where they can just go and live out the rest of their days in like solitary confinement? Why give them another opportunity? It's like, here, put you by a school, and then you can just do it again. Or with your family members, or whatever. I mean, it's like, what about the ones that are already there? Are you doing something about them? Or just the ones that are about to be placed? Like, you know, I mean, are we just waiting for them to offend again? I mean, I don't know. It's like we spend all this money to put them back into life, and it's like we're just repeating the same thing. I mean, I don't know why they can't just go somewhere else. Have a, you know, Nathan's house would be good. Keep them there. That'd be a good idea. He probably has a dungeon. I don't know, maybe. That you could keep him in? Nathan? Yes? Do you? You probably do. Who knows? But for real, I mean, it's pretty sad that they're even out there, and we're like, why are they even released? When they've got like hundreds of things on their belt. Let's give you one more chance. Kind of like we keep giving you guys one more chance. You're like repeat offenders. Yeah. Good times. Nathan, what are you doing? 6 seconds. That's all you got left. Okay.
We'll now hear from the individual that requested to speak by phone. Last four digits are 6900. Please press *6 to unmute your line. 6900. Please press *6.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes.
Hello? Okay. Hi. Good afternoon, Board of Supervisors. My name's Kathleen Hedberg from Mount Helix. Thank you so much for your efforts to keep the county safe from sexually violent predators. I have heard other counties are now following your lead, and I definitely support your continued work on better state legislation. I support this item and proposal for the county to follow 6608.5D and designate an agency to work with the Department of State Hospitals and its contractor to ensure they comply with all regulations and laws. If this was in place, this may have stopped the recent ill-proposed placements and the negative impacts it has been on our community. I would suggest that the development of this agency consider including community members, perhaps similar to the grand jury program. Also, I would suggest that the county implement section 6609.1B, where the designated county agency can propose an alternative placement location. For example, trailers located in an industrial area or area near correctional facilities away from the residential areas and families. Thank you.
Thank you. And Chair Fletcher, that concludes public comment on this item.
Thank you. I also want to acknowledge the 360 folks who signed a petition by Supervisor Anderson also supporting this item. With that, we have a motion by Supervisor Anderson, seconded by Supervisor Desmond. Please vote.
Chair Fletcher, that motion passes with all supervisors who are present voting aye.
We're now going to move to agenda item 15, Compassionate Emergency Solutions and Pathways to Housing for People Experiencing Homelessness in East County. An action brought forward by Supervisor Anderson. I will turn to Tim for some initial comments.
We wanted to look at moving forward. We have the highest number of homeless individuals in the region, and we wanted to make sure that there are safe locations. We have a lot of folks that are living in cars, looking at the possibility of parking lots that would be safe places for them, looking at alternate housing types, but we feel that it's really important that we give people a path, just like everywhere else in the county. Earlier this year, Supervisor Lawson Reamer and Desmond had a pilot program that they're doing in North County, and I admired that, and I'm hoping that we can move forward with this so that my district has access to shelters. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me ask the clerk to call forward any public speakers on agenda item 15.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. We have 13 requests to speak on this item, 6 in person and 7 by phone. We also received 4 e-comments in favor of this item. We'll begin with the in-person speakers. We'll begin with those that are in favor of this item. I'd like to invite forward Zach Schlegel, Judith Scheller, Bonnie Barnahoff, and Kay Leymeniger. You'll have 2 minutes to address the board. You may come forward in any order, and I'll ask you to please state your name for the audio record. For any individuals that requested to address the board by phone on this item, please dial into the conference line now using the instructions that were provided to you.
Hello, my name is Judith Schur. I'm with Hope for the Homeless Lakeside, and I'm definitely in favor of Mr. Supervisor Anderson's proposal. His assessment of the situation in East County is very accurate, and I applaud him for doing the research to come up with the correct information there, and East County really needs the help. I just wanted to put in a few words here. One of the things that he mentioned was the lack of wraparound services, like for instance, the people in the motel system. They drop them off there and that's it. They call me and I'm the one who takes them food at the end of the month when their EBT runs out. They have no transportation. Imagine having to move everything you own every 30 days. They don't just have a suitcase to move. They have a truckload of stuff. So they call me at the last minute, so I'm the one who takes them and helps them with that. They don't have transportation. They don't have food at the end of the month. I supply them with hygiene supplies and first aid supplies. And that's just a few people that I can manage to help. So it's not enough for just the little people like me to do this. It really needs to be a coordinated effort. Also, there's a situation with the people who are not in the motels. They get harassed wherever they try to sleep. They can't calm down because they are constantly being harassed and all their things are taken. There's a law, I mean, it's the Fourth Amendment that you're not supposed to take things from people without due process. And these people come in, Caltrans hires this company to come in. They come in with some law enforcement, and the law enforcement tells the guys to move away, and they take everything. They've taken cell phones, phone chargers, food, everything that's there. They just tell them, move away, we're going to take everything. And that's just violates the Fourth Amendment. And I know they know better, but they're ignoring it. So we need a place for them to be. They need a place to be safe.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
And they need it now.
Good afternoon, Chair Fletcher and honorable members of the board. My name is Bonnie Baranoff, and I'm a volunteer with the East County Homeless Task Force. Since 2016, the task force has promoted collaboration between public, private, and nonprofit sectors to discover and action solutions for homelessness in East County. Our members include managers from East County cities, county staff, the East County Chamber of Commerce, residents, and leaders from local businesses, faith communities, nonprofit health, housing, and outreach service providers. And we thank Supervisor Anderson for bringing this item to the board. In 2016, the San Diego County Grand Jury recommended that the mayors and city councils of El Cajon, La Mesa, Lemon Grove, and Santee initiate coordinated homelessness-related efforts to increase prevention, shelter, and traditional housing services in East County. It also recommended that they join the Regional Continuum of Care Council and participate in its work. There have been many successes in East County since the grand jury report was released. Cities joined the Regional Task Force on Homelessness, emergency shelter crises have been declared, outreach programs have been launched and sustained, and awareness has been raised. However, East County, including the unincorporated areas, still needs immediate relief for our unhoused neighbors by way of low-barrier emergency and transitional housing and support services. It's been 5 years since the grand jury report was released, and we can't wait anymore for someone to make the first necessary move. It's time to acknowledge and address the root causes of homelessness in East County, including the lack of affordable and supportive housing and the dearth of behavioral health services and recuperative care. It's time to create shelters and provide relief. We can and should make these significant changes so that East County can achieve Live Well San Diego's vision to improve health, safety, and well-being for all county residents. I'm a housed resident in District 2, and I support compassionate emergency solutions and pathways to housing for people experiencing homelessness in East County, and I urge you to do the same. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please. Before the next speaker begins, I'll invite forward the speakers in opposition, Alan Curry and Audra Morgan.
My name is Kay Lemeniche, and I want to thank Supervisor Anderson for bringing this proposal forward and thank the entire board for considering it. I've been a member of the East County Homeless Task Force for 4 years now, and I've lived in El Cajon for 40 years. There have been many changes in both the short term and the long term as the result of collaborative efforts. A huge setback was the pandemic, but Supervisor Anderson's proposal in regard to low barrier shelter and supportive services offers real solutions, in particular the safe parking. I urge you to pass this proposal today. Thank you.
Next speaker, please.
Hello, Alan. The homeless compassion. If you really want to show compassion, you've got to confront it head on. There's some people with financial difficulties, but the majority of homeless come out and say it. It's drugs. If you cannot force a treatment on them, as you mentioned about the prisoners, you'll just put them in a motel and they'll be back on the street 30 days later and move them around, get another motel, move around. That is not compassion. Compassion, you put them in places like Father's Joe, private industry where they can actually enforce, you want to live in my home? You're going to do a part-time job. You won't be doing drugs and you won't be doing the cocaine. That's compassion, because this cycling through, when it's government run, you can't enforce, and that's where your biggest problem is. Go to Father's Joe's. He enforces. There are rules. We'll take it a step further, give him self-esteem and say, you want to live here? You pay your rent. Maybe not much, maybe $60 a month or whatever. He works to live there. He builds self-esteem. She builds self-esteem. But we've got to attack this homeless head on. Stop being scared to call it what it is. Majority of homeless are because of drug issues. There are jobs, available signs everywhere. So it's not a job issue. Please look into it. That's how we show true compassion. Thank you.
Next speaker, please.
The high cost of living, the unprecedented COVID-19 pandemic, and our failure to produce enough housing for our population having significantly harmed all San Diego County communities. These conditions have resulted in a 79% increase in first-time homeless individuals in 2021. Interesting, because what you guys are doing throughout the county is pretty much causing people to lose their jobs. And they have families and they're losing their homes. And you want to, produce housing for them, but you guys can't even complete your projects. You have like a 90% shortfall on all your projects. So, how about, like he was saying, help build something that they can live in. It'll make them want to do it because they'll have something to benefit from it, and it will be something that they can actually, be proud of. But we're like creating these problems. I don't know how many times I have to say that, and then, you want to offer up a solution, but the pandemic has gone 79%. Does that bother you at all, Nathan? Probably not. Just because, it has nothing to do with you. And when they're needing to go find some help, are you going to make them be vaccinated to get into a shelter? See a doctor? Be able to get these services that you want to provide? Nobody can even go see the doctor unless they're vaccinated. So, how are these people, you're going to get them off the streets, force them to take a bioweapon just so that they can get help? when the problem was created by you guys, making them lose their jobs even? It's...
Well, now we'll hear from those that requested to speak by phone. We'll be calling speakers by the last 4 digits of their phone number. You'll hear a notification that your call has been unmuted. You'll then need to press *6 to unmute your phone. We'll ask you to please state your name for the audio record. And I'll remind the callers that they should mute their TV or live video stream before they begin speaking. And if you could please identify the first caller.
Sorry. Our first caller is 5187. 5187. Please press *6 to unmute.
Good afternoon, Chair Fletcher and members of the board. My name is Chris Olson. I'm Chief of Staff at Jewish Family Service of San Diego. JFS is calling in support of this item, and we'd like to express gratitude to Supervisor Anderson for his leadership in addressing this issue, particularly in East County. JFS contracts with the Housing Commission and the City of San Diego to operate safe parking programs. We operate 3 sites within the City of San Diego, and we operate a 4th site in the City of Encinitas through the Regional Task Force on the Homeless. The capacity of all 4 of our lots across the county is 231 vehicles, but we know that the need is much greater, and we have definitely witnessed a need in East County. And we believe that this program is needed and has really great results. Safe parking reaches our neighbors facing homelessness quickly and effectively after they've lost housing, but before losing their vehicle and before being forced to live on the street. Safe parking provides the security and support needed for people to get back into stable housing before experiencing further hardship. Studies, in fact, show that the quicker we can intervene with support, the faster people can return to housing and rebuild their lives. The majority of our participants are experiencing homelessness for the first time. The largest demographic group in our programs are older adults, and the majority of people in our program also are working at least 1 job. Together, we're making a real impact for people who are seeking help in breaking out of the downward spiral of homelessness, and we urge your support, and thank you so much for your attention to this issue.
Thank you. Our next speaker is 4677. 4677. Please press *6 to unmute.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Zach Schlegel. I'm the Senior Director of Public Policy at PATH, People Assisting the Homeless. Just calling in support of item 15. I wanted to commend Supervisor Anderson for pushing for additional services for people experiencing homelessness in East County. The region's significant rural, unincorporated area can make service delivery more difficult, but the most pressing issue is the current dearth of low-barrier solutions. We believe that the route to success comes from the Housing First model in tandem with effective case management provided by a multidisciplinary team. East County is one of the highest percentages of unsheltered homelessness according to the point-in-time count and the least amount of services. The number of unsheltered individuals significantly exceeds the number of shelter beds available, which means we need to displace people in East County into other communities to gain access to shelter beds and other resources. As the largest homeless service provider in California, we have significant experience serving all types of areas, including rural areas in the counties of Los Angeles and Santa Barbara. We're excited to see Supervisor Anderson pushing for greater investment in East County and would offer our past experience and insight as you consider how to best serve the people experiencing homelessness in the area. Given the significant federal and state resources that are available now, we would encourage you to seize the moment to make a historic investment in this underserved region. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next caller is 9133. 9133. Please press *6 to unmute.
Hi, my name is Christina Selder, and I'm the Director of Community Engagement and Government Relations at Serving Seniors. We're calling in support of this proposal. For the past 50 years, Serving Seniors has helped seniors in poverty live healthy and fulfilling lives, and many of these seniors call East County home. Most of our clients live on as little as $1,000 per month and have very small networks of support. We have continued to see a rise in older adult homelessness and recently released a report specifically assessing the needs of homeless older adults in San Diego. Our report found that older adults are primarily experiencing homelessness for economic reasons. Our report found that many of the solutions are well within reach, but will require region-specific solutions and investments such as the ones proposed by Supervisor Anderson today. We appreciate his leadership in this space.
Given the projected increases in our aging population and the rising cost of living and aging in San Diego, the county must act now to create and expand services for our homeless seniors to ensure a quality of life for all. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next caller is 2838. 2838, please press *6 to unmute.
Good afternoon, Supervisors and Chair. My name is Teresa Smith, and I'm the CEO of Dreams for Change. I would like to voice my support for the emergency solutions for people experiencing homelessness. As a service provider providing multiple services to people experiencing homelessness, to include the San Diego's first safe parking program, workforce training and development, and financial education, we cannot stress enough on the need for urgency in this matter. We are seeing the high need for action through our street outreach efforts. We are receiving increase in calls from those who are desperate for services that are either non-existing, or there is no capacity in existing services, or the services are located outside the communities that they live and know. These gaps in services and shelter options and overall compassion has long been an issue in East County region. The county holds the resources and duties to lead this effort in reducing harm. We appreciate Councilmember Anderson's efforts and to bring in attention to this matter within this region, and are asking the county to approve item 15 and take bold and immediate action to alleviate the trauma and suffering of those experiencing homelessness. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today.
Thank you. Our next caller is 2736. 2736, please press *6 to unmute.
Hi, my name is Susan Bauer, and I am the local government liaison for the Regional Task Force on Homelessness, which represents the entire county and all supervisory districts. I'm speaking on behalf of our CEO, Tamara Kohler, and we fully support item 15. The Regional Task Force on Homelessness is the Housing and Urban Development's federally designated regional continuum of care for San Diego. In that role, our organization is committed to a vision where any individual or family experience of homelessness is a rare, brief, and non-reoccurring event. The RTFH conducts the annual point-in-time count, operates the region's homeless management information system, and promotes best practices and policies throughout our region to address homelessness, among other key activities to make our vision a reality. I want to personally thank Supervisor Fletcher for his prior leadership on the Continuum of Care's Advisory Board and Supervisor Vargas's current role as Vice Chair. Our organization is committed to a vision where any individual... Sorry. The RTFH strongly supports... Oh, wait. The RTFH conducts the annual point-in-time count, operates the region's homeless management information system, and promotes best practices.
Susan, if you could please mute your TV or your live video stream. Chair Fletcher, we appear to have lost that caller. That concludes public comment on this item.
Wonderful, thank you. Let's go to my colleagues, starting with Supervisor Lawson-Remer.
Thank you very much. First of all, I think this is great. I'm really just excited to see your commitment to this issue, and I think it's very much along the right track, and clearly builds, I think, on initiatives we've had previously, particularly with our North County outreach, and I see that very clearly reflected in the proposal. The one thing I'd love to ask is, whether you would accept a friendly amendment to expand the reach of this county-wide, not to dilute focus in your district, because I strongly support your commitment to this issue, but just acknowledging that there's other areas of our county who also need this research and thought and work. I'm particularly thinking about some low-income communities in my district, like Escondido, that was just up there last week, and they were asking questions very much along these lines. So again, strongly in support of this endeavor, but would like to ask whether you would consider, at least with the recommendations that are currently constrained just to your district, to expanding that countywide.
I'm going to save you the time of writing your own board letter, and I will gladly accept it. Look, at the end of the day, we have great challenges, and we should be helping each other to solve those problems. So I'm happy to accept that as a friendly amendment.
Thank you.
Vice Chair Vargas.
Thank you. I actually was going to ask you the same request. So, but I do want to point out a couple of things, right? I think it's important that we're looking at data of unsheltered population and the potential of homeless communities. We need to take into account that a lot of people don't report out because of immigration status, number one. And number two, there's a lot of folks in our particular communities are having to live in places like Tijuana because they can't afford to live here. And they may not be what we consider traditionally unsheltered populations. So I would request that as we're doing these assessments and we're looking at this information, we really take into account the binational region that we live in and the impact that, that all of those issues, what comes into play with that, right? In addition to that, I just wanted to have clarification because one of the, and maybe I misunderstood, so I just need clarification. There's this idea that it's the concept of that makes me a little bit, uncomfortable is that I think the request that some of this having services before they can actually get housing, and maybe I'm misunderstanding, so that's why I want to have clarification, is not what we're stating, because we are very clear that we have a housing first guiding principle. So meaning that if you're in shelter, folks should be able to get assistance without being conditional of them participating in a program, et cetera, or anything like that, right? So I just want to make sure that we clarify that you don't have to be in a program, you don't have to be rehabilitated before you can have access. Because that's one of our guiding principles as housing first.
Well, for some of these people, there is no possibility of housing. And so we have some gap help that wouldn't be there otherwise. So for example, if a person due to COVID lost their job for a bit and they have a flat tire and they're trying to get to a job interview, this program would be flexible enough to fix their flat tire, to get them to the interview, to make sure that they'd have an opportunity at a job. If they had other gaps we try to help and fill in those gaps. Some of the folks are living in their cars, and for no fault of their own, they lost their housing, and so we're giving them safe places, safe parking lots. So we're looking at what are the fringe items, the low-lying fruit, to get those people help as quickly as possible. But there's not a requirement that they have to have housing for them in order to help them.
Okay, I guess the question is backwards, right? So if you have a substance abuse issue, you don't have to get into a program before you can get into a house?
I don't believe so.
Okay, I just want to make sure we clarify that because that is one of our principles, and I want to make sure that we continue to do that because there has to be dignity for our unsheltered populations to be able to have access to housing with all of that. So I'm happy to support this motion, and I'm really looking forward to our new Office of Homeless Solution and Equitable Communities leading this work, because I think there is a lot to be done as a county and in partnership with our different task force, et cetera, et cetera. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Supervisor Desmond.
Well, thank you. In North County, we already did, and I appreciate you doing this countywide, but we already did an assessment, and we've gotten, I think it was in the last year or so, that we did property assessment to see what's available in North County for housing and types of things you're doing here. So, I mean, I'm happy to participate again in that, but we did that. So if you want to hit your area or the other areas first, that's fine. And I just, since you brought up the housing first, I think housing first is a tool, but not the only tool. And I know there's other programs that utilize it, Solutions for Change being one in North County, that actually have restrictions to using it while you're in those programs. So, and I know it's the majority of this board's position on housing first. But I think, there's other tools in the toolbox that should and could be utilized. Thanks.
Supervisor Anderson, and we don't have a motion, so if you want to make a motion.
Yeah, I'd like to make the motion, and what I would like to do is take the friendly amendment, but say that if we've already done it in that area, I'm not suggesting that we make work for staff.
Yeah, they don't need to
They have enough work already. However, if we haven't done it, certainly we want to address the issue and be as helpful as possible. And I will point out that some of my colleagues, when I asked if I could participate in their pilot, they told me it's a pilot and I'm not allowed in. So I just want to reflect on this moving forward, my open nature of helping everyone.
All right, we got a motion by Supervisor Anderson, seconded by myself with the amendment to go countywide. Let me go to Supervisor Lawson-Remer.
Yeah, thank you, Supervisor Anderson. Just to clarify, it's just recommendations 2 and 3 because recommendation 4 does not need an amendment as it would be duplicating work. So clarifying for staff, don't duplicate your work. Thank you.
All right, please vote.
Chair Fletcher, that motion passes unanimously with all supervisors being present and voting aye.
All right, we're going to go to agenda item 16, authorizing a modification to community care coordination for veteran programs. I am pleased to support this item. I think the opportunity to expand these services to a wider group of folks is an appropriate thing to take, and I'm happy to make a motion to approve. Is there a second? We have a motion by myself, seconded by Vice Chair Vargas. Let me ask the clerk to call forward any public speakers on agenda item 16.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. We have 4 requests to speak on this item, 2 in person and 2 by phone. We'll begin with the in-person speakers. I'd like to invite forward Alan Curry and Audra Morgan. You'll have 2 minutes to address the board. Please state your name for the audio record. For those individuals that requested to speak by phone, please dial into the conference line now using the instructions provided to you.
Thank you. I'm a veteran, and as an enlisted man, every enlisted person had $1 taken out of every paycheck, myself for 20 years, and imagine how much money that is. That money went to veterans' homes. You already got a program. Use it. Use the existing program. And I still stand by my convictions, just as the homeless and all these other giving out the free homes. Let's make sure we keep the incentive there. Or if you want to live here, get a part-time job or something to build up the self-worth, the self-incentive. But please don't add more funds when you've got an existing veterans homes funds. Look into it. It's there. I paid into it for 20 years. Multiply one enlisted man by all the enlisted in the military. That is a hell of a lot of money. It's there ready for you. Thank you.
The C3V program uses peer support team to increase connections to service for veterans re-entering the community and provides housing assistance, care coordination, increased opportunities for vocational training to reduce veterans' return to custody. Why are they going into custody is one question. I mean, they go into the military and they're basically torn down until they do whatever they're told, and then you just send them back out into life and expect them to figure out how to navigate that. I mean, that's, and then why are they being, are they committing crimes that are because of that? So, I mean, you're like mitigating this after the fact, but what about after they just get out of the military and dealing with like issues there? Because, I mean, even just giving them opportunities like you are the homeless, but I feel like you tear them down, not you, but the military does, and then they're just expected to like go and live life after, killing people for a living, some of them. So, I mean, if they come back and do that in the community, I mean, can you blame them if that's what they're trained to do? Instead of thinking about like how to rehabilitate them before they come back into the community so that they can figure out how to navigate life again, instead of having them, live these depressed lives and like kill themselves or kill other people or doing whatever they're doing because they don't know any other way. I mean, Nathan, you were in the military. but I guess that just proves my point.
Chair Fletcher, not seeing any callers in the queue. That concludes public comment on this item.
Thank you. Supervisor Desmond.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a great program. I got to tour the Vista facility here and visit the veterans cell block and where they're getting classes and people from, I think, instructors and professors from Palomar College coming in. They were doing yoga and meditation, and it was a very good, very good program. So I really appreciate staff bringing this forward on behalf of the inmates who are veterans. And because of COVID and I guess housing issues in the jails, they weren't able to offer this to all veterans in one place. And so by offering this to veterans throughout the jail system, helping them get out, helping them transition, helping them get jobs, is phenomenal. I'm really happy to see this come forward, and I'll make a motion if you haven't already gotten one to it. Oh, you already got one, it looks like. So I'm glad we're moving forward with this. This is a great program. Thanks for bringing it.
No, it is. I mean, it really is a good program. We do so much to try and help in the transition. We do so much work around trying to help with mental health and vocation and assistance, but sometimes veterans lose their way a little bit, and they've got to be held accountable for what they did. It does not get you a free pass to excuse that, but once you have been held accountable, and we do everything we can with diversion programs and with Veterans Court and every other opportunity, but I think for those who find their way into our incarceration system, this is a wonderful opportunity to try and get them back on track. And you know, it's kind of a cry for help is an obligation we have to do everything we can. And so us moving forward with this countywide is a strong step forward. So we have a motion by myself, seconded by Vice Chair Vargas. Please vote.
Chair Fletcher, that motion passes unanimously with all supervisors being present and voting aye.
I'm going to move to agenda item 17, substance use residential services. Let me start with the public speakers on this item.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. We have 4 requests to speak on this item, 2 in person and 2 by phone. Also note for the record that we received 3 e-comments in favor of this item. We begin with the in-person speakers. I'd like to invite forward Audra Morgan and Child of God. You'll have 2 minutes to address the board. For the individuals that requested to speak by phone on item 17, please dial into the conference line now using the instructions that were provided to you.
Did you call names? We were talking.
I did. Audra Morgan and Child of God.
Okay, you like pretty much have to have like a full-time job just being like a citizen in San Diego to know what the fuck you're doing up here. To the best of my ability of looking at agenda item number 17, by the way, my very favorite number, 17, the book of Esther. It's the 17th book in the Bible. Look it up. Listen to it. Anyways, it sounds like to me that we are wanting to get some kind of funding to purchase drugs, to help people, to rehabilitate them from drug use. Clarify that for me if I don't have that correct. There are other ways, though, to help people in these dilemmas, these health issues that they have, whatever is trapping them in the 3D matrix. There are energy healers, there's energy medicine. There are people that do this for free. We don't have to siphon tax money from hardworking individuals to heal the world. Maybe you guys ought to call me and we can figure out how to do that for free.
Next speaker, please.
I don't know, then I almost question, are you using, is this a drug, it says organize, the county's drug Medi-Cal organized delivery system. Is that for real? Like, are you going to be giving people drugs? Or am I far off? She just made me think about that. But you're going to be spending $2.8 million from 21 to 22 and 8.4 in 22 to 23. Those are overlapping. Why does it jump so high for the following years? Do drugs get more expensive? You would know, Nathan, right? I mean, why is it going from 2.8 to 8.4? What's that about? That's our money. I'm just curious. You can't, you could answer. I mean, it's not like you have to be totally mute. So it's just a jump in price or what? I mean, I don't understand. Why is it so expensive? And why are those years overlapping? You guys could answer questions. You just choose not to because then you would have to be held accountable for the things you're doing. Nathan, you're not even paying attention. What are you showing her? A meme? Probably. Is it your Twitter account? Are you watching the time go down? Now you are. 17, 16, 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Now hear from those individuals that requested to speak by phone. And if you could please identify the caller.
Our caller is 5484. 5484. If you'd like to speak on this item, please press *6 to unmute. 5484. If you'd like to speak on this item.
Hello, all. My name is Aaron Meyer, and I work as a psychiatrist at UCSD Medical Center in Hillcrest. I'm speaking as an individual and not on behalf of UCSD. I fully support the proposal to expand substance use residential services in San Diego County. Acceptance to these places often takes weeks for entry, and the individual has to call daily to show interest. For some individuals seeking sobriety, this is too long of a period to wrestle with ambivalence, and relapse often occurs. I would like to point out that Governor Newsom recently vetoed Senate Bill 1542 that would have allowed for a drug court mandated secured residential facility in Yoho County. Unfortunately, this bill was labeled as coercive and lacking in evidence. A novel approach like this should not be dismissed simply because it has not existed yet. These collaborative approaches should be encouraged rather than doubling down on incarceration. There is a subset of individuals with severe substance use disorders who frequently utilize emergency departments, who have refused IHOD outreach, they've refused ACT services, assisted outpatient treatment. I respectfully request that the Board of Supervisors seek information from EMS and area emergency departments to determine populations outside of our current substance use disorder continuum of care, investigate novel approaches to address their health, and collaborate with stakeholders on metrics on which to base our success upon. Thank you.
Chair Fletcher, that concludes public comment on this item.
Wonderful. Thank you. Supervisor Desmond.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. And just briefly, to the speakers, during your time to talk, that's your time to talk. It's not our time to answer and respond back to you. I know it's frustrating when you ask us questions, but it's your time to talk. If we start answering, we're taking your time. That's why we don't do it. But I will ask the question, I guess, for our CEO. So why it is a big jump from fiscal year 2021 at 2.8 million to 22-23 to 8.4 million? What is? I just got a question on that.
Dr. Bergman.
So both the appearance of overlapping years and the difference have to do with our interest in establishing this contract pretty immediately, and so prorating the first year as a fiscal year, and then the second would reflect a full year cost.
So is the first one the 2.8 a partial year? Is that what I understand?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, all right. And then the 8.4 is a full year's worth.
That's right.
And this is money that's coming from Medi-Cal, is that right?
This is part of our drug Medi-Cal organized delivery system,
Okay.
which is a
right.
substance use disorder treatment.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm going to make a motion to approve the item here. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, second by Supervisor Desmond. You know, look, it's clear we got a lot of people in need. We got a lot of people out there that are struggling, that are having hardship and difficulty. A lot of that does tie back to mental health illness and the intersection of mental health illness and substance use, and we know we have to do a better job of tackling it. And so to see us move forward, in order to do that, we really do have to embrace a better way for behavioral health services, new types of interventions, building trust, linkages to services, really implementing so much of what we adopted in our overall harm reduction strategy efforts. And so to move forward with SUD residential, these are short-term services to support clients, includes treatment planning, individual and group counseling, family therapy, safeguarding medication, crisis intervention services, transportation, so much else, and the withdrawal management service. This is a vital component, a 24-hour supervision, observation support for intoxicated and those experiencing physical withdrawals from alcohol and drug, to get in a place where we can better assess and build that trust and recognize what's happening, and then have those residential services to provide to them along with the ongoing efforts. This is a good step forward, and I'm pleased to see it, and all of the work we're doing comprehensively. So with that, we have a motion by myself, a second by Supervisor Desmond. Please vote.
Chair Fletcher, that motion passes unanimously with all supervisors being present and voting aye.
Going to move to agenda item 18, notice public hearing, issue of revenue obligation bonds. I'll make a motion to approve. Is there a second? Motion by myself, seconded by Vice Chair Vargas. Ask the clerk to call forward the speakers.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. For item 18, we have 4 requests to speak on this matter, 2 in person, 2 by phone. We'll begin with the in-person speakers. I'd like to invite forward Audra Morgan and Child of God. You'll have 2 minutes to address the board. For the individuals that requested to speak by phone on item 18, please dial into the conference line now using the instructions provided to you.
I'll just open my mouth up and talk. Earlier, there was an agenda item that I didn't get to finish my thoughts on because we're tied up in this weird matrix of time, only giving free men and women a limited amount of time to speak on very important topics is really an abomination of God, ought to be considered. Anyways, it was the item number 7, inmate welfare. I encourage those that are watching at home
Unfortunately,
to study the etymology of inmate welfare. We're in a game of checkmate. Yeah, I'll return to the agenda item in just a second.
No, you need to speak to agenda item 18.
You know what, you're getting a little bossy pants over there, and I don't do well with that, so you better stop it.
This is your second warning. You're violating the rules of procedure by not speaking to the item.
I'm speaking to the item number 18, and stop being bossy pants over me. Issuance of revenue obligations by the California Enterprise Development Authority for the benefit of Community Health Systems, Inc., in an aggregate maximum amount not to exceed $7 million. I mean, you have to have a degree to break that down and comprehend it. It's really trying to use the English language and mindfuckery on the public. It's just not okay. You gotta speak in layman's terms to the people. Just be clear about what it is you're wanting to do from the heart, because I don't understand what that means at all. And there's just people do not have time to make this their full-time job to read all the reports that you guys put on the web. So it's discrimination. It's discrimination. People don't have the time to commit to that. Put it in layman's terms. Speak to people directly.
Next speaker, please.
You know they don't want to do that. So I'm just wondering, because this is like a health system, will you actually complete the project? Because you don't want to do the housing stuff, but I mean, you're always starting projects that you can't complete, and then there's just more money spent towards it. Is this actually going to be completed? Or is this money just going to pretend to go to it, and then it's not going to be completed? And then you'll have to come in with another agenda item to bring more money so you can actually complete it. But I think if it has to do with vaccinations, you'll be sure to get that done. First thing. It'll be top on your list. I mean, so Jim, is this replacing the health center that's already there off of Mission Road? No? Is a new one? Like a community-based one? You don't know, but it's in Fallbrook. How do you not know? Did they not give you enough time on this? They don't give anybody enough time, right? It's like, let's just put it out there so we can vote them through and nobody really knows what's going on. It just seems like it's close by there, so I was wondering, because is it gonna be for everybody in the community, like, or is it gonna be just for some people? And will you be able to go without a vaccine? Probably not. So I guess I won't be able to use that. Bummer.
Chair Fletcher, seeing no callers in the queue, that concludes public comment on this item.
We have a motion by myself, second by Vice Chair Vargas. Please vote.
Chair Fletcher, that motion passes with all supervisors who are present voting aye.
Thank you. Agenda item 19 was on consent. We have had a request to speak on this item. Not seeing a motion to reconsider the item, we will give the public speakers who want to speak on this item the opportunity. So I'll open the record on 19 and ask the clerk to call forward the speakers.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. I'd like to invite forward Audra Morgan and Child of God to speak on item 19.
I just see it says, process to fill vacancy on the Board of Supervisors. What does that mean? Does that mean I'll be able to take your spot, Nathan? How would you like that? Wouldn't that be pretty cool if you were sitting here and being like, hey, I've got a problem. And I was just picking my nose and, you know, tweeting and doing all the things that you do. Wouldn't that be exciting, don't you think? It would be like opposite day. I would love that. I might just have to move. I think I'm going to. I don't know, then maybe Jim would be pretty cool to hang out with. Who knows? What is that about? Process to fill vacancies. Is there going to be a vacancy? Nora? Should I take your place? I could try? Is that a dare? I don't know which spot I want. I'm trying to think. One of them. That would be exciting to see you guys on this side. Pleading. Please help me. And I'll just be like, it's so funny. I don't even want to pay attention. Who cares if you say people are dying? That's why there should be vacancies. In fact, Nathan, your time is up pretty much anyway, so it's not like you can be reelected unless you're like Newsom and just somehow make it back to that seat.
Next speaker, please.
Well, it says sunset review, so that has me excited because it looks like we're going to be stopping some of the bullshit that's happening. That's what I'm taking from it. Sunset review of Board of Supervisors policies. I don't know what the policies are about specifically, again, because you want people to go onto the web and like read your reports, and regular folks in the community. That's why there's so few people that even show up now, because the rah thing is over, so they're not committed. Really, I'm calling out the men and women of San Diego. You got to show up. We got to have a team effort here. It can't just be a few people that are committed to doing this stuff and calling out the people that are pulling strings and doing shenanigans. Anyways, this is reminding me because the word policies is here, and regulatory code. What other bullshit word was used? And then administrative code. None of those are laws, so therefore those wouldn't even apply to us. They would only actually apply to the public servants. So I'm trying to figure out if you're trying to have these codes and policies that would have typically applied to you guys to be stopped. Because really all those things, codes and policies and mandates, those apply to government employees. They don't apply to free men and women. This is really important that people in San Diego start to comprehend this issue so that they can reclaim their rightful status as free men and women. And since I have a little extra time here, I'm just going to say I applaud everybody that kept their children home from school yesterday, and praise God to all the teachers and staff that called out too. God bless you.
And that concludes the comments on item 19.
Thank you. We're now going to move to agenda item number 20, resolution to request federal government lifting of restrictions, an item brought forward by Vice Chair Vargas. We'll go first to Vice Chair Vargas.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. As many of you know, last week on Tuesday, the Biden administration actually announced that starting in November that we're going to be able to lift, they're going to be lifting non-essential travel restrictions at the U.S., Mexico, and U.S.-Canada borders to allow fully vaccinated people to enter the U.S. with proof of vaccination, which is fantastic. And although I applaud the Biden administration for this, this accomplishment was truly a regional collaboration with our various mayors and our own board of supervisors and members of the city councils around the county advocating to support workers and their families most negatively impacted by the border restrictions. What is very clear from the restrictions that have been in place for the last 18 months is that our small businesses, working families, and our communities as a whole were greatly impacted. Many families couldn't see each other or care for each other due to the travel restrictions in a region where families are used to crossing the border sometimes daily to see their loved ones. We also know that the restrictions have been devastating for small businesses and our binational workforce. And so I want to emphasize this because our binational workforce is anyone that identifies with the binational community and has an interdependence on both sides of the border. The binational workforce can be, it's not just the area of South County and the border region, but it's also the binational workforce can be the farm workers in Escondido or the hotel workers in San Marcos. This interdependence is notable to the various headquarters based throughout San Diego that have their maquiladoras in Mexico or that rely on a workforce coming from Tijuana or from Mexico. For instance, Tyler's Guitar Manufacturers in Tecate and its headquarters in District 2. And so I am proud that this initiative that I am presenting to you today, the board letter, is a partnership that I've been able to work together with both the San Diego Chamber of Commerce that represents the business community and the San Diego and Imperial Counties Labor Council that represents our binational workforce, and asking in this board letter to look to create opportunities for our binational communities that have been disproportionately impacted by the pandemic and identify opportunities and resources so that we can help folks get back to a sense of normalcy. That is what this board letter is, why this letter is so important. We were not only requesting the lifting of the non-essential travel restrictions, but really thinking about how our CAO can come back and offer ideas of how we pursue economic relief opportunities to address the pandemic's impact on our binational communities as a whole, including exploring emergency stimulus zones that can help us support our small businesses and binational workforce. This board letter also presents a unique opportunity to re-envision our economic recovery in the region, highlighting the importance of our binational component and an opportunity to work with federal and state government to leverage those opportunities. I think I've mentioned before, but I think it's important to emphasize over 200 businesses have closed their doors forever in the San Isidro border area. The impacts of the businesses closing doesn't just impact the business owners, but families, employees, healthcare, their healthcare, house, food and economic security. It is estimated that between March 2020 and March 2021, retail sales were $200 million, which is 72% loss for the region, not just South County, for the county of San Diego. And the Regional Chamber of Commerce estimates that San Diego County's tourism and retail industry suffered a 40% economic loss in the last year. 70% of manufacturing and construction businesses have been economically impacted because of the disruption of integrated supply chain. And additionally, 89% of the region's job loss happened in the tourism, education, and retail industries, greatly impacting both small business owners and essential workers. I really believe that we have an opportunity and a responsibility as policymakers to reimagine how our binational region, which in this case is the County of San Diego, is going to not just survive but thrive. And so I'm proud to champion this board letter and ask would like to make a motion for support.
Thank you. Happy to second that motion. Let's go to our public speakers.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. We have 8 requests to speak on this item, 2 in person and 6 by phone. For those individuals that requested to speak by phone on item 20, please dial into the conference line now using the instructions that were provided to you. We also received 2 e-comments on this item. We'll begin with the in-person speakers. I'd like to invite forward Alan Curry and Audra Morgan. You'll have 2 minutes to address the board.
Hello, Alan. I had a pink slip. Please change it to green. I just had a caveat concerning the non-essential. We've got to really key in on the fact non-essential. Who's to decide what's essential, non-essential? That's part, you're taking away from somebody and giving somebody else an upper hand, and that can never happen, sir. Please look into that. But by all means, please change mine to green, because I fully support all business equal open. All travel equal everybody, not just certain groups. Thank you so much.
Next speaker, please.
We know there's human trafficking going on at the border, right? They're being paid to come across the border. And then just put in here, I mean, they were doing it for like the voting and whatnot, but they actually have a choice as to whether or not they want to be vaccinated. If they want to come over and be here, which is interesting because the people don't. We don't have a choice. We're just supposed to do it. Just get vaccinated. Just inject yourself. And then it's like, I mean, I had somebody tell me, what are you afraid of needles? Pretty sure I have tattoos. No, I'm not, but that's the kind of stuff people are saying about these vaccines. Just do it. You don't have a choice. But then if people want to cross the border and come over, they do. They have that choice. It's pretty sad. It's pretty sad.
We'll now hear from those individuals that requested to speak by phone. We'll be identifying you by the last 4 digits of your phone number, and you'll hear a notification that your call has been unmuted. You will then need to press *6 to unmute your line. We'll ask you to please state your name for the audio record. And please mute your TV or live video stream before you begin speaking. And if you could please identify the callers.
Our caller is 0171. 0171. Please press *6 to unmute. 0171.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello?
Yes.
Yes.
Hi, Jimena Villaseñor speaking on behalf of the San Diego Regional Chamber of Commerce and speaking for a variety of industries and small, medium, and large employers in our region. We are proud to support the request to identify and pursue economic relief opportunities for businesses and families in our border region to address the effects that 18 months of non-essential travel restrictions have had on our regional economy. Our binational region is home to approximately 7.3 million people that live on both sides of the 150-mile international border in California and Baja California. And our proximity has resulted in an interdependent economic relationship in a binational community. Before the implementation of travel restrictions, thousands of Mexican visitors crossed the border to the U.S. to shop for groceries, back-to-school supplies, spend the day at our parks and beaches, and sometimes for school or work. In fact, every month, 5.9 million people cross into California and spend millions of dollars in San Diego. The economic impact isn't felt solely in the border region. A growing binational economy also has tremendous implications across the state and our nation. The Chamber joined businesses and community leaders across the U.S. in urging the federal government to lift restrictions, providing an overview of the economic implications these restrictions have had on our business community. We were relieved to hear restrictions will finally be lifted next month. However, the impact doesn't stop there, and our businesses and communities still need help.
As we move toward equitable economic reactivation and recovery, the countless businesses from all sizes and across sectors, which have been severely impacted by border restrictions, face the need of emergency economic sustainability zones to aid the revival of our border communities. We applaud Supervisor Vargas for her leadership and commitment to our binational region. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. That concludes public comments on this item.
All right, thank you, Supervisor Desmond.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Appreciate it. I'd like to commend Supervisor Vargas for bringing this item forward. Thank you very much. I think it's an important step in getting our economy back on track and getting people back to work. And I know there's been shortages of personnel and employees and things like that. So I think this is great. I'm in full support because it shows we're getting back closer and closer, step by step, back to normal. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, we've got a motion by Vice Chair Vargas, seconded by myself, to approve agenda item recommendations in agenda item 20. Please vote.
Chair Fletcher, that motion passes unanimously with all supervisors being present and voting aye.
We're going to proceed to agenda item 21, implementation of Voter Choice Act in San Diego County beginning in 2022. I believe our democracy is strongest when most people participate. I also think it's important that we take actions to make it more convenient and easier for individuals to vote. And we have the opportunity in front of us to adopt California's Voter Choice Act. It gives people more opportunities in a more convenient format to vote and can help strengthen our democracy. Vote centers are a one-stop shop. They are open for more days. They provide more services, create a more convenient voting experience for San Diegans. Adopting the vote center model like 20 other counties in California have is a good way for us to increase participation. Vote center models work in that all active voters are mailed a ballot with pre-paged postage. They can return in the mail. We know in recent elections almost 90% of voters are choosing to mail them back. They also can drop it off at multiple locations across the county or at vote centers. Hundreds of vote centers will be open for 4 days, including Election Day. And significant numbers will be open for up to 10 days, including election days. These vote centers can offer ballot replacements, ballot language assistance, same-day voter registration, and the opportunity to not have to cast a provisional ballot. No matter where you live, going to a vote center affords you the opportunity to cast your local ballot where you live. If today's action passes, this will go into effect for the June 2022 gubernatorial primary election and subsequent elections moving forward. As I mentioned earlier, we're seeing considerable increase in the number of people returning their ballots by mail, 88% in our recent September election, really a transformation in how we vote. In the November 2020 election, more than 1.4 million people in San Diego County cast their ballot by mail, and there were more than 1.6 million people who cast a ballot. The trends and way we're changing here, I think, is something that makes sense. We've seen numerous counties do it earlier in adopting this. Los Angeles, Orange County have already moved to the vote center model. We can learn some lessons from those, and we can join the rest of the counties moving forward. And I think because we just conducted an entire election under this model, we're familiar with it. We know how to operate it, and the public seem to buy in and appreciate and understand it. In 2019, I brought forward an action to have a study of the feasibility of it. The feasibility report showed us that they were possible. We have now learned and built on that and actually doing it. And I think it is the appropriate step for us to move forward at this time. I know it is important that we do robust and rigorous outreach with the community, walking them through the changes, assessing where these need to be to make sure they're equitable, make sure they're fair based on communities and their ability to access the ballot. And I'm very committed as we move forward to working with the ROV to help us successfully engage with communities and make sure that we can seamlessly make this transition and continue to see really good voter participation in our elections. So with that, I will make a motion to approve the recommendations in agenda item 21. We have a second by Vice Chair Vargas. Let's hear from our public speakers, and then we'll come back to the board.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. We have 14 requests to speak on this item, 5 in person and 9 by phone. For the individuals that requested to speak by phone on item 21, please dial into the conference line now using the instructions that were provided to you. We'll begin with the in-person speakers. In opposition to this item, I'd like to invite forward Alan Curry, Mike Borrello, Audra Morgan, Cindy Paris, and Cindy. You'll have 2 minutes to address the board. We'll ask you to please state your name for the audio record.
Thank you for reminding me. Sorry, I keep forgetting that. Very, okay. These vote centers, the drop box, all that, We've really got to have the chain of custody. Everybody's talking about it, but what are we doing about it? Remove the doubt, have both a registered Republican and a registered Democrat to keep custody of all these drop boxes, lock them up. If they got to open up, a truck driver's got to pick them up, please, to keep custody. Remove the doubt from people like me that do not trust mail ballots. I've been in-person ballots since 1998 after I left the military. I was absentee before, after I saw what happened in Orange County, especially in 2016, a week after the election, through the ballot harvest mail ballots. I question. This is what happened recently. Poll workers get to open every mail ballot. It puts a doubt. It puts a doubt. Are these poll workers impartial? It really puts a doubt of what's going on. It's not the post office. So people like me are concerned. I always vote by in person. Some people are more comfortable vote by mail, but for the people who vote by mail, give them the confidence. Please, the lock boxes, 2-key custody goes right to the register. And we've got to do something about poll workers, only one person. They get to open every envelope. It could be either side of the aisle. No poll worker should be opening our mail ballots and looking at them to decide whether or not to certify. Michael, you're an expert on this. Please comment on this again. Give us some insight, because people like me need more confidence, sir. Thank you so much.
Next speaker, please.
Cindy Paris. So this was Nancy Pelosi's pet project recently in the House of Representatives, and she couldn't get enough support there to actually get it passed. So she had her nephew, Gavin Newsom, pass it in California. And the counties that have adopted it, Nathan, have actually had widespread public input, and this is the first time we're hearing about it, and you're gonna vote to implement it, which I think is putting the cart before the horse. I think you should do it the other way around. And I'm asking Joel Anderson, my representative, and Jim Desmond to consider putting a friendly amendment forward, because 81% of voters support voter ID. We are not only taking the Constitution of California and throwing it out because there's only supposed to be 1 day to vote instead of 11 days, but the voters want voter ID. 81% of voters support voter ID. 77% of Black voters support it. 78% of Hispanic voters support it. 67% of Democratic voters support it. 82% of independent voters support voter ID. Voter ID is so important. In this last election in September, hundreds of people went to the polls and were told they had already voted. It's not okay. No one in our country, 54% of the people in our country, do not have confidence in our elections. It's your job to make sure that we do. Please make sure we have voter ID. It's important. It's important for our elections that we think that they're honest and fair, whether or not they are. And nobody does right now, not Democrats, not anyone.
Next speaker, please.
Hi, I'm Cindy. Since voting has gone to vote by mail, the possibility of fraud has skyrocketed, even though the authorities or the politicians are saying that they haven't. There's a lack of confidence in whether or not our votes are really being counted. And it's logical that when you have boxes that are not supervised and the chain of custody is compromised, that people would think that our vote is a joke. And that is what has become of our voting systems, especially in California, from Nancy Pelosi's H.R. 1 bill, which is, this is a copycat of it. One thing is that when you are in government And you are ignoring us because you know that you have not gained the consent of the people. You only serve at the consent of the people. But when it's a joke, Nathan Fletcher and Vargas and Lawson Reamer, that you are not really voted in, Soros is funding you, and then it comes, you can ignore obviously your constituents because you're not dependent actually on our votes. And so this is just a way to get voter fraud actually into as legal. It's legal to cheat, and that is what's become of this system with this Agenda 21.
Next speaker, please.
It's just interesting because you think these last two elections weren't totally fraudulent. Like, Newsom got voted in again. Oh my gosh, it's hilarious. It's like comedy. But here it says voter choice, and then it says further, for all future elections, all voters will now be mailed a vote by mail ballot regardless of preference. Are those not contradictory to each other? You have the choice, but you don't have a preference. So we're using two different words. So it's logical, right, for you guys? I mean, because, I mean, if people can, you could see through their mail-in ballot envelopes to see what they voted. And if you, how is it that you're saying that everybody liked that when they were just sent these mail-in ballots anyway? Without a choice. And it was like, well, if you want, I mean, people, yeah, obviously they're just gonna take that and vote because they don't necessarily know any different. Because nobody wants to educate the people on the process and tell them the truth that they shouldn't even be using those mail-in ballots. But as long as that happens, you guys can continue to cheat. And like I've said over and over, none of you are there because you were voted in. You were placed there. And now it's like giving free reign to do it continually, which, I mean, why would you guys stop? Because, I mean, I don't know why anybody votes until the system is fixed. And we have the voter rolls, so it's going to be interesting to pluck you guys off.
Mike Borrello, Carlsbad. Elections are not counted, they are calculated, and they are on cruise control. This is a quote paraphrased by me from Draza Smith. She's another control systems engineer. Draza investigated the 2020 election data and came to the conclusion that the batch-by-batch trajectory of observed votes held a signature, a fingerprint, of a control algorithm. Specifically, a PID controller, that's a proportional integral derivative compensator, such as used in the process control industry and in the capacity of ratio control. In other words, the controller maintains a set desired ratio between two competing candidates or propositions, regardless of the actual inputs. My point, drop boxes, mail-in or walk-in votes are irrelevant. It's the machines that need to be addressed. They need to be removed completely. To learn more how the controllers interface with the machines, read about frog block ciphers, torysays.com. It's how the machines interface with the network. The controllers are outside of the system. The interface is built into the machine, and the controllers take over the machines and control the ratio of votes. This is widely known now by technical people across the nation. We have an army that's looking into it. We're going to get to the bottom of it, and we're going to turn it over.
Now we'll hear from those that requested to speak by phone. We'll be calling speakers by the last 4 digits of their phone number. You'll hear notification that your call has been unmuted. You will then need to press *6 to unmute your phone. We'll ask you to please state your name for the audio record. I'll also remind the callers that they should mute their TV or live video stream before they begin speaking. And if you could please identify the callers.
Our first caller is 8039. 8039, please press *6 to unmute.
Good afternoon, supervisors, and thank you to Chair Supervisor Fletcher for your visionary leadership and partnership to transition San Diego County to the modern age of secure and simple voting. I am Christopher Rice Wilson, and I'm the Associate Director at Alliance San Diego, a regional organization leading large-scale voter engagement, education, and mobilization efforts in the region. We are in support of shifting the county's election process to the vote center model already being used in all other large urban regions in our state. As such, we have seen other regions implement the vote center model, and we know that there is no one-size-fits-all approach to this transition. We strongly suggest that the registrar of voters implement this system with the state law as a minimum requirement, such as decreasing voter-to-vote center ratios and increasing the number of drop boxes. This transition also needs to ensure that historically disenfranchised and vulnerable communities, such as those with transportation and language access issues, high-density urban areas, working-class neighborhoods, and indigenous communities in rural areas are not negatively impacted. Being that this is a major shift in our election system, we also strongly support the Board of Supervisors ensuring that the Registrar of Voters has ample resources to engage in a robust public education and awareness campaign to inform all, and I mean all voters, on the new vote center process with a strong focus on the vulnerable communities I mentioned earlier. We strongly suggest that the Registrar of Voters partner with, work with, and build a plan with the dozens of community nonprofit organizations who have carried a large share of the burden of educating voters over the last 10 years and have unquantifiable experience and data, and have also helped to nearly triple the size of our electorate and increase the average turnout in our elections. We are supportive and stand ready to partner with the ROV to move forward and make this full transition.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Our next caller is 5700. 5700, please press *6 to unmute.
Hi, my name is Jean Wee. I'm the president of Vic Vote. Our organization has been dedicated to do the work in voter education within the Vietnamese community for about 3 years now. I am calling in to support this item because vote centers that are implemented and to prevent potential negative impact on historically disenfranchised voters. I actually did volunteering work at a vote center at the last election, and I can tell you that the experience has been very positive. One thing I do want to make a mention is, we do need to have a very robust community engagement and education and partnership, considering this is a new way of voting, and the more that we do it, the better it will be for the voter in the long run. Voter centers should be community center, and we welcome to work with the ROV to help ensure historically disenfranchised voters have equitable access to voting under this new model. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is 5362. 5362, please press *6 to unmute.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Judith Howell. I'm calling on behalf of Planned Parenthood Action Fund of the Pacific Southwest and the Invest in San Diego Families Coalition. I'd like to thank Chair Fletcher for bringing this item forward. Our country has witnessed ongoing attacks against voting rights that explicitly target communities of color. And the ongoing attacks also occur right here in San Diego, which is why this resolution is so important. Right now, we can show the county, the state, and country that San Diego will work to make voting easier and more accessible. I'd also like to urge the ROV and board to work with trusted community partners and make robust community outreach a priority once implementation begins. Again, thank you for bringing this forward, Chair Fletcher, and working to make voting easier for our county. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next caller is 0854. 0854, please press *6 to unmute. I can see that you've unmuted. You may have to unmute your cell phone as well.
Sorry. Good afternoon. I am Kim Knox, president of the League of Women Voters of San Diego. My comment is on behalf of LWV San Diego and LWV North County San Diego. Our organizations support electoral systems that encourage participation and promote access to voting, and the Voters' Choice Act model fits the bill. With the adoption of any electoral system, the League believes that education of the voting public is important, and funding for startup and voter education should be available. We are concerned that developing the election administration plan in a short time frame may not provide sufficient time and resources to ensure adequate education and engagement, particularly in communities comprised of already underrepresented voters. We encourage sufficient funding to support robust community outreach efforts and collaboration with community organizations to facilitate that outreach. With those caveats, we support the proposed implementation of the VCA vote center model beginning in June 2022. Thank you.
Chair Fletcher, that concludes public comment on this item. Also note for the record that we received 13 e-comments, 10 in favor and 3 in opposition.
Thank you. I also want to thank our Secretary of State, Dr. Shirley Weber, for her support of this action we're considering today and all the work that they are doing. Let me go to my colleagues. We'll start with Vice Chair Vargas.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher, for bringing this item forward. I think, if anything, in the last couple elections, we have seen that this model, particularly through the pandemic, was very successful in areas like South County, and absolutely believe that should be replicated for the register of voters through this process. One thing that I think is really important to note is that other counties that have transitioned to the Voters' Choice Act model have documented increased turnout among all types of voters, and particularly high voter participation among these voters who often vote at lower rates, including younger voters, Latinos, and Asian American Pacific Islanders. And so by voting yes on this, I think we are voting on an issue that is a racial justice issue and a civil rights issue. So I'm proudly will be voting for this item. Thank you for bringing it forward.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Supervisor Desmond.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. And I'm always in favor of whatever allows the most people to vote in a safe and secure way. 2 years ago, I opposed the vote centers primarily because I was concerned about the people voting in the unincorporated areas where vote centers would be fairly sparse or sparsely pretty far apart from each other. But now that there's mail-in ballots to everybody, my position has changed on this. The state legislation mandated that everyone received a mail-in ballot now. 80% of San Diego voters are registered, or already registered for mail-in ballots, so I think it's kind of moot at this point. I will note that, even there will be, hopefully there'll be enough locations for these vote centers so people can still vote in person if they choose to, or have a secure place to drop their mail ballots around the county. Implementing vote centers is a reality in California now. I'm going to be supporting the item today, but I would like to, I don't know if there's a friendly amendment. Well, I would like to offer a friendly amendment as one of the recommendations, as some of the callers called in. Going to this new, there's going to be skepticism out there amongst San Diegans and throughout the county. So I do think if we could add an education component or a community outreach component that explains how this is going to be, how people can vote, and I know we want, I know I can agree with Supervisor Vargas about going to underrepresented communities, but I think everybody needs to figure out how this is going to work. Anything new, people are really skeptical of. So I'd like, I don't know how much money it would cost, but I think
we don't, Supervisor, we don't have to change it. I think maybe we can have our registrar speak to with the components of that are built into what we're voting on today, but perhaps touch on the EAP timeline along with the community engagement efforts that are already planned and a part of what we're doing.
Okay, because I didn't see that in here. Okay.
Thank you. Yes, there is a robust outreach and communication plan built into the law. The registrar is required to create an election administration plan with public input. So if this item is approved today, we will immediately roll into, again, encouraging participation in our advisory committees, as well as doing outreach to encourage participation in our public hearing and our various public consultation workshops that we will be rolling out in the month of December. We will dedicate potentially the next 4 months to rolling out the education plan and to have a robust outreach plan. There will be 4 mailers total, direct mailers, 2 kind of introducing what the vote center model is and your voting options. The same information will also be included in the sample ballot pamphlet as well as the mail ballot packet that's mailed to all active registered voters. In addition to that, we will do a robust communication plan, and we'll start planning that immediately with public meetings, advertisements, and getting feedback from the public on what would work best in doing a robust public outreach campaign.
Would you be willing to do like a town hall type things or in each of the districts or chambers of commerces? I'm just trying to get, to everybody, what this change is and what it means to voting throughout. So all the residents, like I said, change isn't easy. And especially with voting, people are going to be squeamish, and I just want to make sure we, as robust as possible, because I'm thinking in my district it'd be great if we had a presentation by the Registrar of Voters to come up there, and then maybe, presentation to the Chamber of Commerce's or city councils, things like that I think would be very helpful moving this forward.
Absolutely, and we'll start scheduling those as soon as possible. We want to develop a good draft plan to move forward with. We also want to have some maps available to present at these public hearings to show where the locations were in the November 2020 election as well as the September 2021 election. So at least we have a starting point for a discussion.
Okay, and I'd like you to, and maybe all the offices, if you could work with our offices, supervisor offices, to make sure that we're getting the outreach that each of us uniquely need. All right?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah, and just as we go forward, this public engagement part's really important. And so if you encounter shortages, you need additional funding, you need something, to fulfill, or if you hear from the community, there's additional things that, we think are good to help engage with folks, please keep us posted and let us know. I'm going to have our Chief Administrative Officer make a quick comment on one aspect of this, and then we'll go to Supervisor Anderson.
Thank you, Chair. It is very important that we do outreach also with the new redistricting once those maps are adapted. So those maps are supposed to be done by December the 15th, and then we'll have about a 30-day window to see if there's any fallout from those maps. But we will be incorporating that part of the outreach as well so that people understand what the new voting system is going to look like, but also who are their representatives and who do they get to vote for. So it's an important part of that outreach that will also be included. Thank you.
Okay. And just a quick comment. Somebody made the notion that this is a replica of HR 1. It is not at all. I checked.
Supervisor Anderson. Thank you, Supervisor. Supervisor Anderson.
I just want to do a quick shout out to the ROV. You all do such a great job. My race was closer than perhaps I would have liked, but it took the full time. And every day on the news they'd report, why is the registrar not reporting the numbers? And I can tell you, because I know a little bit, because I served on the committee that oversaw it in the legislature, you went above and beyond. The whole team went above and beyond to make sure every vote got counted. You sent out letters, you did phone calls. People sent ballots in that weren't perfected, and they needed to sign their name. They needed to do something simple, and they couldn't be counted, but you wanted to make sure, your whole team wanted to make sure that those votes were counted. And I just want to give you public accolades. Every time in the news, I'd always say, no, they're doing a great job. If they moved faster, then votes would be missed. And so, and by the way, I should point out, I was 4,700 votes behind when I said this. It's easy to say now, having won, but even when it looked like I wasn't going to win, I certainly appreciated your whole office and all the great people down there that work so diligently to protect our liberty. Thank you.
All right, thank you. We've got a motion by myself, seconded by Vice Chair Vargas. I'm pleased to see us move forward with this. It's been a long road. Things that in 2019 kind of broke our brain a little bit. We're now getting our head around and moving forward. So we've got a motion and a second. Please vote.
Chair Fletcher, that motion passes unanimously with all supervisors being present and voting aye.
We're going to move to our final agenda item today, agenda item 22, Community Enhancement and Neighborhood Reinvestment Program grants. I'll make a motion to approve. Is there a second? I have a motion by myself, second by Supervisor Anderson. Ask the clerk to call forward the speakers.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. We have 3 requests to speak on this item, 1 in person, 2 by phone. For the individuals that requested to speak by phone, please dial into the conference line now using the instructions that were provided to you. We'll begin with the in-person speaker. I'd like to invite forward Audra Morgan. You'll have 2 minutes to address the board.
Too bad you know my name, because otherwise you'd read what's on there. Anyway, I meant to say too, what's this $22 million you were going to spend for that? If you did 132 boxes, that's $166,666 each. That's crazy. Anyway, and you're using these funds, you're going into the transient occupancy tax revenues for all of these things? So you're taxing us to do all of those things? Is that how it works? And it says $6,500 from the community enhancement budget to the Friends of Chula Vista Parks and Recreation to support an event coordinator, COVID compliance for participants and attendees. What's that mean? COVID compliance. Does that mean you have to have a vaccine to go? I don't know. What is COVID compliance? Is that a new thing? I'm just curious. So if you want to go smash pumpkins, you have to be in compliance with COVID. COVID regulations. Just take a vaccine so you can go smash pumpkins. Take a bioweapon just so you can participate in the recreation. And is that money just going to that event coordinator? Or is it for the event? Is it so that they can police people coming in and make sure they're COVID compliant? Would you consider me COVID compliant? Are you COVID compliant, Nathan? What does that mean? You could answer that. What's that mean? Are you just putting words in there so that we get confused and you can just spend money? What does that mean? 7 seconds. It's almost over. You won't answer what COVID compliant means? Awesome.
Thank you. Not seeing any callers in the queue. That concludes public comment on this item.
Got a motion by myself, second by Supervisor Anderson. Please vote.
Chair Fletcher, that motion passes unanimously with all supervisors being present and voting aye.
Thank you. I want to give my colleagues the opportunity. We've added the board kind of committee reports, updates from any groups or organizations you're a part of. If there's anything board members would like to share. Not seeing any. We have one adjourned in memory today. I'd like us to adjourn today's Board of Supervisors meeting in honor of Steve Kruger. He tragically lost his life in the plane crash that occurred last week in Santee. Steve was a proud member of Teamsters Local 542. He spent 30 years of his life working for UPS. Was loved by the neighborhoods of East County, where he spent 3 decades working in. Friendly person who got to know his customers while delivering packages. People said he always greeted them with a smile. Steve loved spending his time chatting with customers as he went through his day. He was 61 years old and a resident of District 4 living in Ocean Beach. And at the end of his career, he was on the verge of retirement. He had just bought a house in Mammoth. He loved the snow and being outdoors. And it's a really tragic and terrible loss. And the entire Board of Supervisors sends our deepest condolences to his brother Jeff and to all of Steve's friends and family. And on behalf of the entire Board of Supervisors, we adjourn today's meeting in Steve Kruger's honor. With that, we will go to our final non-agendized public speakers, and I'll ask the clerk to call them forward at this point.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. We have 12 remaining requests to speak on matters not listed on the agenda, 3 in person and 9 by phone. For those individuals that requested to speak on a matter not listed on the agenda by phone, please dial into the conference line now using the instructions that were provided to you. Begin with the in-person speakers. So I'd like to invite forward Audra Morgan, Jeff No Way, and Child of God. You'll have 2 minutes to address the board, and please state your name for the audio record.
Hey, my name is Jeff, and honestly, I've learned to enjoy coming in here. I mean, nobody really knew anything about this totally corrupt governmental body prior to this smoke and mirror casted scamdemic we're going through. Now, through all of the unnecessary hell you board members have put our county through, the people have learned and are very actively learning just who you all are and the evil you stand for. The felonious fraud that each of you have perpetuated on an innocent, purposely misdirected population, Jim. What's particularly great, I think, is the video documentation of it all. I mean, there's no denying what you all are doing and what you've done. It's going to be something else when it's soon time for accountability. Excuse me. Each and every one of you knows, you all know that masks don't work. That's why you're not wearing yours today, Nathan. You know the masks don't work. You know the PCR test is an absolute joke with up to 97% false positives. You know that the number of cases is thus absolutely meaningless. You know that there are meds that work effectively that have been wrongfully suppressed. You know that the inept hospital protocol has been killing people. You know that the shot wasn't created for COVID. COVID was pretended up to get folks to accept the shot. And the shot is causing a ton of blood clotting, neurological damage, sterility, and death, not to mention hocus pocus variants. Each and every one of the co-conspirators in this horrific fraud will all be held accountable for your unthinkable actions in these heinous crimes against humanity. And I would gather that your punishment may not only be in this lifetime. Given the gravity and level of pure evil here, you may very well be repenting for all eternity.
Thank you. Next
It's never
speaker,
too
please.
late to come clean.
Thank you. Next speaker, please. Next speaker, please.
Child of God. There are other professions that require continuing education units, and somehow I became aware that that's not true in government. And the one request I would have, and we could start a movement here in San Diego, is that we hold our government employees, our public servants, and those who hold office, every year there must be training on the Constitution. Simple. Probably just take one day. They do it in healthcare, they do it in financial services, teachers, they do it. It's necessary. I'd like to ask, I don't know who my representative is. I'd like for someone to put that on the agenda item to be visited. It's important because a lot of folks that work in this building, they don't even know some of the constitutional things. They don't know some of the important amendments that have been violated. That's an abomination to God. The other thing is, you know, back in, I'm going to assume that this is relative to 9/11, how when we come into this building, we have to, those of us who don't have a fancy badge, we're being discriminated against, and we have to go through a body scanner. That is an unlawful search of property. There is no, the phrase is escaping me. There's no probable cause. I'm not a threat. I haven't committed a crime. Yet your sheriffs want to force me to walk through a body scan and have my personal property, my purse searched through that scanning machine. That is a violation of my inalienable rights, constitutionally protected. That needs to be visited.
Next speaker, please.
So no disrespect to the gentleman you were honoring, but a bunch of people are dying in plane crashes just like that because they had the vaccine. And they're not sharing it on the news because they don't want people to know that. That's terrifying. I feel bad for that man. Because maybe if he would have known that that was possible, he wouldn't have been flying. But he probably thought, because he believed some of the lies, that it was safe. But I would look it up if I were you. Look up plane crashes, and it's the ones where there's only one pilot, because the other pilots, there's two or more, right? And there you have that safety net. These people flying alone in that plane, they have nothing. And so they just go down. And that could be stopped. That's what's so sad. Excessive coercive power over others when they are not legitimately empowered to do so exceeds the limits of their legitimate authority to exercise coercion or exercise coercive or destructive control over others that violates a higher standard of humanity or morality, even though it may be within politically sanctioned authority. The preceding description on social sanctions for evil is quoted from Zimbardo's Psychology and Life, the same psychologist who devised the Rand Stanford prison experiment in 1973, revealing the horrific nature of the obedience of authority despite great human suffering. Whether it be lockdowns, mass PCR tests, or experimental vaccines imposed on our children, I charge these supervisors, its HHS, and the County Board of Education, and with child abuse and endangerment under the guise of welfare and safety. Their current behaviors fit Zimbardo's role of prison guard, perhaps unwittingly, but nevertheless guilty of evil doing as clinically defined. They have exercised coercive and destructive control over our children, violating a higher standard of humanity and morality in the same of politically sanctioned authority.
Thank you.
Thank you. Your time has expired. Next speaker, please.
We'll now hear from those.
Your conduct is interrupting the function of the meeting. Please stop. Your continuing talking is interrupting the conduct of the meeting. Please stop. You can go now.
We'll now hear from those.
Phone speakers, please.
We'll now hear from those that requested to speak by phone. We'll be calling speakers by the last 4 digits of the phone number. You'll hear a notification that your call has been unmuted. You'll then need to press *6 to unmute your phone. Each caller will be asked to state their name for the audio record, and again, you'll have 2 minutes to address the board. I'll remind the callers that they should mute their TV or live video stream before they begin speaking. And if you could please identify the callers.
Our first caller is 8672. 8672, please press *6.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good afternoon, tyrants. My name is Amber Long. I just wanted to get one thing clear. I do not consent and I will not comply. I do not consent to a vaccine that came out less than a year ago. I do not consent to any kind of treatment, medication, or product in which the long-term effects are unknown. I do not consent to being an experiment. I do not consent for my kid to be an experiment. I am not hesitant or unsure. I know for a fact that this is something I do not want. I will not budge. This is where I stand. So if you want to come after me, then do so. But know this. I may not be the one starting this war, but I will be the one winning it. Here in San Diego County, you have awoken a sleeping giant. You have awoken parents, grandparents, friends, and family to your treacherous ways. We will not back down. Here is where we stand and where we shall remain. I advise you to retract your measures, but I know you won't do that. All I can say is you are picking a battle you will not win. Good will overcome and our freedoms will remain intact when we are through here, whether you like it or not. I do not consent and I will not comply. The answer is no. I don't want it. No, thank you. I appreciate the offer, but no, thank you. No, really, I don't want it. So please stop insisting. The answer is no. Sorry to hurt your feelings, but no, the answer will always be no. I do not consent and I will not comply.
Our next caller is 7872. 7872, please press *6 to unmute.
Hi, my name is Allie Hartman with Reopen San Diego. We've been tirelessly advocating for the full and complete reopening of San Diego for the past year and a half. While it appears reopened, sadly now many are losing their jobs, including 500 police, 300 firefighters, lifeguards, and 200 civilian employees, which are slated to lose their jobs on December 1st, 3 weeks before Christmas. This is atrocious, as well as puts the city and county in grave danger. What happens if my child chokes and I call 911 and nobody comes because there's not enough firefighters? Will somebody be able to get there in time? What happens if burglars figure out that the police don't have enough people to respond to burglaries like in Austin, Texas, and they have to stop responding? You, as the Board of Supervisors of San Diego County, have a responsibility to the safety of this community. You must act and do something. We are calling on you today to pass a resolution that the County of San Diego will never discriminate against someone based on their health status. Stand against discrimination of our first responders that puts all San Diegans in jeopardy. Discrimination has no place in America's finest city, and we need to keep San Diego a safe city for all of us. The community can get more info at reopensd.org, and you can all join us at our SDPD and firefighter rally this Friday, 3:30 p.m. at City Hall, where we will ask the same of Mayor Todd Gloria. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next caller is 2813. 2813, please press *6 to unmute.
Hello.
We can hear you.
Hi, this is Sandra Martinez. How are you all today? I hope you have had a good day. I just wanted to make a comment. You know, I know healthcare workers, et cetera, fire personnel are all being let go if they're unvaccinated. But I wanted to address the healthcare workers. You know, they work through this entire pandemic. Most of them have natural immunity at this point. And when they leave in certain cities, their replacements could be National Guard or it could be FEMA personnel. Did you know those FEMA personnel are not required to be vaccinated? So people are being terminated because they're unvaccinated, but yet the people that are replacing them are not vaccinated. It seems very bizarre to me and makes no sense. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Our next caller is 0631. 0631. Please press *6 to unmute. 0631. Please press *6 to unmute.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, my name is Beverly, and I'm a parent, and I'm a volunteer with Children's Health Defense California chapter, giving voice to the children. I'd like to address the misinformation in the last Board of Supervisors meeting. I would like the public to know that the COVID vaccine used in clinics today on our children is Pfizer BioNTech, that is, and is still only under EUA authorization, which by definition means it's experimental and by law cannot be mandated, and trials do not end until 2023. Pfizer Culinary, difficult to pronounce, is claimed to be FDA approved, but has not had regulatory procedures like other vaccines. It's not on the market. It may not ever if it's held to the traditional regulatory procedures. We ask, why are you pushing the experimental EUA COVID injection on our children? Parents can ask the clinics if the clinic is using the FDA-approved Pfizer Culinary. They will not find a clinic that does because, as I stated, it's not on the market. It's a hanging carrot. The FDA states it is not known whether the potential medical treatment before FDA approval offers benefit to patients until clinical research on that treatment is complete. Therefore, the county cannot state that the experimental COVID injection, which is still in trial until 2023, is safe or effective. It cannot be said. This is misinformation you are giving the public. Not only is this false information, but the county is not telling the public that there is no liability from pharma on vaccines. You are sending healthy kids to an experimental injection with no protection. All the risk is on the child and the family. The county will not take the liability for their false information. Parents and schools cannot mandate vaccines, and EUA vaccines are illegally on them. Schools cannot mandate vaccines, and vaccines that are EUA cannot be mandated.
Thank you. Thank you. And that concludes the request under non-agenda public communication this afternoon.
All right, we're done early. Good day. Thank you all. We stand adjourned.
The board will reconvene tomorrow, October 20th, 2021 at 9 a.m. for the planning and land use session of this meeting. As a reminder, closed session item 25 has been continued to tomorrow's session.